Chapter 75. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. The screams and begging for mercy seemed to linger in his ears. After calming down, Amo Xiaofei's face turned pale. He subconsciously stepped back and gently bumped into the door of a car that was being lifted by an air pressure elevator for maintenance. Brother Quan, as well as a few other students, were lying in a pool of blood. They were on their last breaths. If they didn't rescue them in time, they would have to give up their lives. Amo Xiaofei found himself breaking out in a cold sweat. After venting the resentment in his heart, he was shaken by the bloody scene in front of him. No, they deserved it. I'm just punishing them for their mistakes. Yes, I'm just stopping them from committing crimes. I didn't do anything wrong. This world is too unfair. I didn't do anything wrong. Amo Xiaofei opened his mouth. His eyes began to change and became fierce. He said to himself, yes, I did a good thing. Yes, there are too many unfair things in this society. Let me do it. Punish them. Old Chen's son had been wandering behind the bun shop. Until the bun shop began to close, he braced himself and walked into the shop with 2 bags of gifts. Old Chen looked at his son's posture and didn't say much. He simply said that since he was back, he should have a meal with his family. He should bring his daughter-in-law and grandson over tonight. Old Chen's son heard that and said that he didn't need to pick them up. He just asked his wife to bring his son over after work. But he also asked Luoqiu to stay. He called his wife to buy more food so that they could have a more sumptuous dinner. The aunt hadn't been so lively for a while. She happily called Luo Dance to go to the nearby market. Old Chin was tidying up his belongings. The rolling rod, the flour sieve, and the workbench were wiped tirelessly over and over again. Your brother Luo's son, right? Old Chen's son looked at Luoqiu for a while before asking hesitantly, I think so. Luoqiu nodded. Elder Chen's son seemed to have found something to pass the time. He sat beside Luoqiu and began to chat about the past. Your father was still young at that time. Every day he would rush to work on his Jiaoling 70 and would come here to buy some buns to eat. Old Chen's son recalled that time and said with a smile, Your dad said that our buns can't be found anywhere else with this flavor. Yes, indeed. Luoqiu looked at Old Chen, who was busy with his work, and said softly, I don't know about it decades ago, but at least I've been smelling like this for more than 10 years. Old Chen's son is called Qin Youjiu. Old Cheng hoped that his son could achieve something in the future, so he changed his name. Chen Yu was a hard-working person. After graduation, he entered a big company to work. Later, he got married and bought a house in the city with a loan. Later, he gave birth to a chubby son. Different parts of the same city had different levels of consumption, but the rich and the poor could always find a place to live. Although Chan Youjiu was a seedling grafted from this old city to the prosperous city, he finally found a place to settle down. Seeing Luoqiu staring at his father, who was tidying up the workplace, Chin Youjiu suddenly felt embarrassed. It was a casual conversation, but in fact it was almost the same as strangers. They grew up in the same place, drinking the same tap water, and even eating the same popsicles in the same snack shop when they were children. Was the snack shop selling popsicles, snacks, and sundries okay? Chin Youjiu wanted to continue to talk to Luoqiu several times, but found that Luoqiu's eyes were still on his father from the beginning to the end. He couldn't help but wonder, Brother Chin, how long have you not touched the things on the bun counter? Luoqiu said, softly at this time. Chin Youjiu was stunned and said subconsciously, After I went to college? Later, I found a job. I haven't touched it for more than 10 years. I think so. Luoqiu said softly. In fact, I don't have a deep impression. I just remember that when I was a child, there was always a person around the uncle. In fact, I said that the taste of the bun hasn't changed for more than 10 years. In fact, it's different. It should be said that the best taste was when my father took me out here for the first time when I ate it for the first time. At that time, my father asked me if the bun was delicious. I said yes. He asked me if I knew why it was delicious. I shook my head and said I didn't know. My father said that it was because it was made by the family, so it was delicious. At that time I didn't understand, but these years, I probably tasted the reason why the taste is different. Chinyojio was stunned. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, he only said one sentence. When you grow up, you can't go back to the past. Luocio suddenly said, "It's rare to have so many people here. I haven't eaten the bun made by Brother Chin and Uncle for a long time. Can I have a taste?" Chinyojio suddenly didn't know how to deal with this young man. He shook his head. "I can't. I haven't touched it for more than 10 years. Besides, the table has already been cleared." Luocio said regretfully, "You're right, but—" He turned to look at Chinyojio and suddenly asked, "Your son, hasn't he eaten the bun made by you?" Luocio stood up, put the stool aside, and tidied up his things. "Although I want to eat this meal, I think it's better if I'm not here." Chinyojio wanted to persuade him to stay, but he didn't say it. Not long after, old Chin knew that Luocio left quietly, so he didn't say anything. Aunt and Luo Dance hadn't come back yet. Old Chin smoked the tobacco pipe that he had smoked for decades. The father and son just sat upstairs in silence for more than an hour. Old Chin suddenly got up and walked into the room. Soon after, he came out and gave Chinyojio an iron box, saying, "This is the title deed of the house. Walk inside." "Dad." Chinyojio looked at his old father in astonishment. Some things can't be kept." Old Chin shook his head. "It's not easy to make a living in the city. I'm old. It's no use to keep these things. Your wife is from the city, and it's not easy for her these years. But since you're the one who started it, just continue it." "Dad, I have a good meal later." Old Chin bowed and went downstairs. Chinyojio covered the iron box with a stack of documents in it. His nose twitched inexplicably. Looking at the old photos hanging on the wall, he was in a daze. In the evening, Chinyojio's wife came with his son. In fact, Chinyojio didn't tell his wife about the sale of the land at the beginning. Old Chin didn't mention it at the dinner table, so he didn't mention it. His son looked at the beautiful big sister of the bun shop and was very shy. The family was happy and harmonious. Soon after the meal, Chinyojio's wife said that it was late and the child had to go back to school tomorrow. The aunt reluctantly grabbed her son's hand and whispered, "Remember to come back more often when you have time." Chinyojio's nose twitched again. He looked at the sign of Nyen Nyen Bun Shop, which had been hanging for decades. He looked at old Chin, who didn't walk him out of the door. He just sat in the shop and silently smoked his old pipe with his back to everyone. For some reason, he suddenly remembered the question Luocio asked him before he left. He almost blurted out, "Wait, I'll go later. Mom, is tomorrow's stuffing ready?" "Ah, it's been pickled. What's wrong?" Chinyojio suddenly pinched his sleeves, but he felt that the white shirt was not comfortable to be pinched. He simply took it off and walked in wearing a small vest. "I'm making steamed buns for my son." At dawn, Luocio appeared alone on the second floor of the bun shop. Old Chin sat on the old sofa, and his wife sat beside him. She leaned on his shoulder and closed her eyes. Old Chin also closed his eyes, leaning on his wife's hair. The two of them seemed to have fallen asleep. The little butterfly monster sat by the wall, holding her knees. She looked at Luocio's arrival and suddenly said, "Boss gave me some money and asked me to find a place by myself." Something like that. Luocio said indifferently, "2 people in your family died suddenly. You'll be suspected eventually. Grandpa thinks you're an illegal resident, so he's afraid that you'll be investigated." Luo Dance suddenly seemed to think of something. "Wait a minute. Grandpa asked me to leave in the daytime. He said you'll come and ask me to give you something." The little butterfly monster rushed downstairs. Luocio glanced at old Chen and his wife, suddenly walking to them. He grabbed old Chen's hand and gently put it on his wife's hand. "How can I forget after holding it for a lifetime?" Soon after, the little butterfly monster ran back with a bag in her hand. In the evening, Boss's son suddenly came back and said he wanted to make some buns, so he started to make them. But he made a mess and was scolded by Boss. He kept making and scolding. It's strange. He scolded him fiercely. But I felt that Boss was very happy at that time. And then Boss started to make them himself. The little butterfly monster opened her eyes wide. It ended up being very late. Boss's grandson fell asleep and still didn't eat. Luo Dance handed the bag in her hand to Luocio. Boss said, "This is the taste." Luocio heaved a long sigh and took it silently. Then he walked behind Old Chin and stretched out his hand, preparing to take away his soul. At this time, Luo Dance suddenly said, "Wait a minute. Can you take a picture for me?" "Picture?" Luo Dance nodded and took out an inferior brand mobile phone, as if it was a treasure. "Boss bought this for me. He said I can call home whenever I think of my family's contact information. I dare not say that I lied to him. I think I will never see Boss and Ann again, so. I don't know how to use it." "Sit down." Luocio nodded and took the phone. Luo Dance sat beside the auntie at once. Facing the camera, she showed her white teeth. With a flash, Old Chen's decades of life came to a complete stop. When Rin Xiling walked out of the room with a sleepy yawn and scratched her hair and came to the living room, she saw several steaming buns and a small note on the table. "Damn, this guy is so early today. Where did he go?" At this moment, this kid just happened to set foot on Romanian soil and stared blankly at a very well-preserved castle. "Well, I'm going to see that impaling Duke again." The servant girl beside him said softly, "Yen, yen, yen, yen PS1. Sanjong's recommendation should be refreshed after 2:00 in the afternoon. If you have the ability and don't mind the trouble, you can vote for it. PS2. I'm looking for recommendation tickets and tips again today. PS3. There will be one more update after midnight. That's it. Chapter 76. Genius 1, Second, Remember Love, /go, /small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. The double-winged castle in the east and west wings was hidden in a large green forest and a sea of roses. There were mountains in the distance. It was a picturesque scene. It was like a fairyland. Of course, it was the fairyland in the Western concept. The ancient castle, full of a sense of history, was deserted. Only a small road leading to the castle gate was built. Luocio and Yi walked on the Rose Road, recalling the transaction content of this customer in the account book, or the continuous transaction of the Sosescu family for hundreds of years. For more than 500 years, the Sosescu family continuously used the souls of their family members to buy the time of a demon's seal. As for this demon, it was the impaling Duke mentioned by Yi, or Grand Duke Vlad. Since he could be crowned with the name of the impaling Duke, Boss Luo easily associated him with the name of Count Dracula. However, when Boss Luo and Yi walked to the castle gate, they unexpectedly saw many modern vehicles. Although there was no lack of expensive and luxurious carriages, he was more interested in the brass-colored, four-wheeled carriage. It was really a carriage. Boss Luo didn't intend to restrain himself. He felt that there was nothing wrong with being a tourist for a while before work. However, there should be some noise in the castle, which didn't match the tranquility of the sea of flowers. The Sosescu family was a very ancient family in this land. It had been passed down from generation to generation and stood firm. These days, basically all the descendants of the family came back from all over the country. The news was that the head of the Sosescu family, Mr. Jonathan, who had just passed his 65th birthday, was diagnosed with a terminal illness and would soon die. He called a lawyer, which seemed to be for the issue of wealth distribution. However, according to the past tradition, most of the wealth of the Sosescu family would only be distributed to one person, and the rest would be distributed to the rest of the family. That was to say, Sosescu's wealth had always been concentrated in the hands of a single person. However, it was strange that the inheritance of this kind of wealth didn't necessarily appear in the direct line of the head of the family. The inheritance of Ceausescu's wealth seemed to have always followed a mysterious and ancient mechanism of judgment. The steward, who had served the lord of the castle for nearly 30 hours, now blocked the path of all who intended to visit Mr. Jonathan. "Fong Bu, why won't you let me see my grandfather?" The young man questioned loudly in front of the old steward. As Jonathan's direct grandson, the young Kista was extremely dissatisfied with the old steward's interference. The old butler said, "My young master Kista, please forgive my rude behavior, but I had no choice but to obey master's orders and not let anyone meet him until he was ready." Kista was stunned. He frowned and said, "You mean this is my grandfather's order?" "Yes, my young master." The old steward nodded and looked around at the young men and the older members of the Ceausescu family. Because the successor of the Ceausescu family wasn't necessarily the direct line of descent and would follow the secret mechanism that only the head of the family knew, he could see the greed that was covered up with anxiety and worry in the eyes of many people. Among the many descendants of the Ceausescu family, there seemed to be only one who didn't care much about it. His name was Osmond. He was about the same age as Kista and was also Mr. Jonathan's grandson. In his early years, Osmond's mother had a very enviable engagement. The other party was the descendant of a sultan of a dynasty in this land, which was also a very ancient family. But Osmond's mother fell in love with a chef in the Ceausescu family's old castle. The two eloped and left, leaving only Osmond. Osmond was found by Mr. Jonathan nearly a year ago and admitted as a member of the Ceausescu family. But because he was the only son left after the elopement, Mr. Jonathan didn't like him. The young Osmond was sitting at the back of the crowd. Now he didn't say anything and walked out by himself. He walked out of the east wing of the castle where Jonathan lived and came to a quiet courtyard between the east wing and the west wing. In the courtyard, a small maze was woven out of the rose hedge. Osmond had been to this castle several times, so he knew that in the center of this small maze there was an old well that had been sealed. It was said that it had long dried up and was pressed down by a big stone, so there shouldn't be anything special about it. But every time Osmond passed by, his heart would beat inexplicably, as if he had heard something whispering, "Mr. Osmond." Suddenly, someone called him from behind. When he turned around, he saw a nun in a black robe with a silver cross on her neck. Her eyes and nose were covered by a cap, so he could only see the exposed part of her body. Suddenly, a strong wind blew open the gauze curtain, and the sound of rolling was heard. The lawyer, who was discussing something with Mr. Jonathan, frowned. Unexpectedly, Mr. Jonathan, who was lying on the bed, suddenly said, "You go out first. I want to be quiet for a while. I'll call you later." The lawyer didn't dare to say anything. He knew how much wealth this old man had in this land, and clearly understood the power of this family in the country. The lawyer closed the door and left. Jonathan lifted the quilt and walked out of the bed, looking at the two figures who appeared on the balcony with a serious expression. Jonathan took a deep breath and said, "You finally came." "Mr. Jonathan, according to the contract 30 years ago, the deadline is tomorrow before sunrise. Please be prepared." Ye looked at Jonathan and said indifferently, "Of course." The conversation between the two was done in a special language. Luo Chiu could understand the conversation. Clearly, it was in Hungarian. Yes, it took a total of 5 days. But in fact, if it only took him 5 days to master a foreign language, it was so cheap. "Mr. Ozis, long time no see." Jonathan looked calm. In fact, it was because he knew that his time was coming that he was in a hurry to deal with his legacy and choose a successor. He looked at Yu Yi, who hadn't aged for 30 years, thinking that the man beside her was naturally the boss of the club. Although he didn't know why he had the face of a clown, Jonathan didn't want to delve too deeply into this mysterious place passed down from ancient times, no matter what happened. "Mr. Jonathan, this—" Yu Yi was about to correct Jonathan's mistake. Unexpectedly, the new boss of the club waved his hand and nodded, saying in fluent Hungarian, "Indeed, long time no see." The new gang leader's thoughts were very simple. He didn't take the blame of the previous boss, he just came to collect the debt. Yen 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 PS1. I'm a little uncomfortable. Change the update after midnight to tomorrow morning. Recently, it's as stuffy as a roasted pig every day, and the air conditioner is blowing too hard. My body is really weak. PS2. But I've also updated 2 chapters today. Where are the votes? Smiley face. Angle. Chapter 77. Genius 1. Second. Remember love. /go. /little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Who are you? Osmond wasn't too vigilant about the sudden appearance of this black-robed nun, but he was more curious about her. Although the Sosescu family had just returned recently, at least the family still had faith in their hearts. The number of people who would go to the church every week could be counted with one's fingers. Mr. Osmond, you can call me Lamias. Then Lamias gently drew a cross on her forehead, shoulders, and chest in front of Osmond. Osmond couldn't help but become a little reserved. Although he didn't believe in the saint in Western history, his late mother was a very devout believer. Besides, he saw a ring on the ring finger of the right hand of Sister Lamias. Was it the symbol of a nun's temperament? But why was it a black ring? What can I do for you? Osmond couldn't figure out why this nun would suddenly come looking for him at this time. Logically speaking, his grandfather Jonathan wasn't a believer. Was it because his life was coming to an end, so he intended to convert at the last moment of his life? But if so, it should be more appropriate to call a priest over, right? Lamias said with a smile, "There's one thing I want to give you." Out of nowhere, a white envelope appeared in Lamias's hand. The envelope was sealed with wax, and the picture was the coat of arms of the Sosescu family. Letter? For me. Who? Your mother. My mother? Osmond looked at the white envelope in his hand and was stunned. When he raised his head to ask more, the nun called Lamias had already disappeared. Love go, little, say, W, chew the wind blew, and the rose hedge in the courtyard swayed gently. Osmond frowned, opening the envelope. It was a yellowed letter paper which seemed to be old. My dear son, Osmond, by the time you see this letter, I may have already passed away. I love you, my son, 1,000 times. My son, if you are satisfied with your current life and even have a lover, I hope you won't continue to watch. This was a mother's request, because what I am about to tell you is a long-held secret of the Ceausescu family and the truth about your identity. They may completely change your life, but your life may not change for better. It may even become worse. The writing on the first page of the letter had stopped, and it was his mother's handwriting. His mother's handwriting was not easy to imitate, and it was difficult for outsiders to notice the habits between the few subtle strokes. Osmond was stunned. He didn't know that his mother was the daughter of the Ceausescu family until a year ago. That was probably what he was going to say next. His mother probably didn't expect that after she eloped and left the Sosescu family, her father would once again amend this relationship. But why would that seemingly young nun have a letter from his mother? Osmond had no choice but to be patient and turn to the second page. I am not the daughter of the Sosescu family. Lucio didn't say anything more to Jonathan. Love, go, little, say, W, chew since the beginning. They had only come with the intention of collecting debts. So they basically left as soon as they met. In fact, Boss Luo was more interested in the devil that was suppressed by the Sosescu family for more than 500 years than the soul of Jonathan that he was going to take away. The impaling duke is under this ancient well. In the middle of the maze of the rose hedge, Lucio curiously looked at the ancient well that was suppressed by a big stone. To be exact, it should only be a part of the impaling duke. She said softly, Master, do you know the history of the impaling duke? Lucio thought for a while and said, I remember that he was defeated in the end and his body was dismembered. You mean part of the impaling duke's body is sealed here? Yu Yi nodded and said, It's his left hand. She started to talk about something that was not part of the official history. Hundreds of years ago, the impaling duke was famous for his brutality. There were many legends about him in this land, but until now, most people only thought that it was a story that was modified by art. But we know that it's not as simple as that, right? Luaccio became more interested, since the historical record states that the impaling duke was dismembered, and the left hand of the impaling duke is sealed here. Does it mean that the ancestors of the Ceausescu family participated in the crusade against the impaling duke? The descendants of the sultan of the dynasty that was overthrown, the Ceausescu family, and some ancient organizations that pretended to be righteous. They joined hands to kill the impaling duke and separated his body. However, the impaling duke didn't die because his head was separated from his body because he was too powerful. So the people who joined hands to kill him could only leave with a part of the impaling duke's body and look after it separately. Although the impaling duke was brutal, he was indeed a hero who defended the country. So, after the impaling duke was defeated, they worshipped the soul of the impaling duke, but it was just a formality. Because when the impaling duke's soul was dismembered, it was split into several parts, and they were hidden in different parts of his body. Yu Yi stretched out her hand to touch the square boulder above the ancient well. They left with a part of the impaling duke's soul. They thought that since they had already weakened him, they should be able to find a way to eliminate the impaling duke after a long time. But this soul originally belonged to the club. How could it be destroyed so easily? Luaccio was astonished. You mean the impaling duke had also made a deal? Yu Yi nodded. I'm not too clear about this part because it happened before I joined the club. But the former owner once mentioned that he abandoned all the beliefs in his heart, sacrificing a large number of lives and his own soul to obtain the power to take revenge. There should be a record of the impaling duke in the account book, right? Luaccio suddenly asked. Yu Yi nodded. Yes, it's in another book. Reasonably speaking, Luaccio didn't think it was because he didn't take the initiative. The problem was the account book itself. Dozens of books, or more than 100 books. Each book was as thick as a brick, and all of them were as small as flies. They were quietly piled up in a certain position on the first basement floor of the club. Maybe he should find some time to start digging out the account book when he went back. Why would the Ceausescu family use the souls of their own family members as the price to seal the left hand of the impaling duke? That year, after the head of the Ceausescu family brought back the left hand of the impaling duke, he used all kinds of methods, but failed to eliminate the left hand. Even his wife was tempted by the part of the impaling duke's soul that was hidden in the left hand. She drank the blood of the left hand secretly and became a vampire. Yu Yi said indifferently, after the head of the Ceausescu family found out about it, he suppressed the grief in his heart and killed his wife. Yu Yi suddenly jumped lightly and sat on that huge rock. She looked at the ancient shadow of the castle far away from the flower wall and chuckled. The tragedy caused by the impaling duke can't be forgiven. Even if we can't eliminate him, we want him to suffer endless pain forever. Back then, the head of the Ceausescu family made his last words. If any of my descendants wants to get the endless wealth of the Ceausescu family, there is only one condition, that is, to contribute their souls and let this demon live in endless pain forever. Yen yen, yen yen PS1. Thank you to Tyrant's Joker, Momo, Jinshan Poison Tyrant, Immortal History, Poem, Butler Achi. Otaku is waiting for book, Damarakia and others for their tips. PS2. Thank you to the readers who voted for Sanjiang. Thank you for your enthusiasm, especially those in the group. Beigao, who took the lead, James Rhoda, who asked me first, and Shindu, who did the tutorial. I really don't know how to repay you, so I have to. PS3. Let me continue to PS3's daily request for votes and tips as if nothing has happened. PS4. There's 1 or 2 more chapters in the evening, depending on the situation. Chapter 78. Genius remembers. Love, go little in 1 second. This is a wonderful novel for you to read. What, Osmond? Child Kista of the Ceausescu family slapped the table furiously like a mad bull. Love, go, little, say, Ku the lawyer who had been bribed was telling him some information that was hard for him to accept. Mr. Kista, this is indeed the last will of Master Jonathan, and it will be announced after his legal death. No, he's just a bastard born by an eloped daughter. He's the stain of the Sosescu family. How can he inherit 90% of the inheritance of the Sosescu family? Mr. Kista, Mr. Jonathan has completed the project of the will under my witness. The lawyer shook his head and said, The will needs to be kept a secret. I've violated my professional spirit by telling you. Mr. Kista, please don't tell anyone that I've told you this. Just take it as my reward for your help. The lawyer left in a hurry after he finished his words. Kista sat down again, but he couldn't calm down. Although the successor of the Sosescu family wasn't necessarily a direct relative, which happened many times in the tradition, he thought he was the most outstanding one among the successors of this generation. A bastard. Kista gritted his teeth. A ferocious expression appeared on the handsome young man's face like a viper. Yeah, you've contributed a lot to the Sosescu family, but in the end, you've only got 10% of the wealth, and you've even shared it with others. Your grandfather is really biased. At some point, a young woman's voice came from the balcony of the room. Kista turned around. Even the black robe couldn't hide the plump body. It was a woman dressed like a nun. A nun! This was the room on the 4th floor of the castle. Kista couldn't figure out how this woman appeared on the balcony. Maybe she had been hiding before he entered the room, and even eavesdropped on a conversation between him and the lawyer? Mr. Kista, it doesn't matter who I am. The nun paused and said softly, The important thing is, don't you want to get the wealth of the Sosescu family? Who are you? Looking at the strange appearance of a woman dressed like a nun, the nun was not guiding people to do good, but was instead discussing the inheritance of a large family? What kind of joke was this? Mr. Kista, don't you want to know the true standard of the Sosescu family to judge the successor? You. Kista frowned. He worked out all year round and learned Western boxing. He was a young and strong man, so he was not afraid of this petite woman. He narrowed his eyes at the nun in front of him. Know what? Then we'll have to start from a very, very long time ago. A faint smile appeared on the lower half of his face. An ancient legend. Love, go, little, say, Netuku. It seems that the patriarch must have loved his wife deeply, right? Speaking of the origin of the seal in the Sosescu family, Luaccio sighed with emotion. However, he soon recalled something. The impaler Duke turned into a vampire because he made a wish in the past club, right? Of course. Luaccio frowned. According to the Western legend, vampires are immortal, so this debt can never be repaid? Yu Yi said, vampires live on blood, so they have to follow the bloodthirsty instinct. So theoretically, they can live forever. So the impaler Duke needed to be sealed, right? Luaccio gave a start. He suddenly understood something. Even though the brutal impaler Duke had swallowed a lot of blood and became very powerful because of the war, if he was dismembered and his body was separated, after many years he would eventually starve to death, right? Behind the group of people who killed the impaler Duke that year, was there also a shadow of the club? Luaccio suddenly asked. The former patriarch didn't mention it. Yu Yi smiled. So Yu Yi doesn't dare to guess, but there's one thing I know. What is it? The wife of the former patriarch of the Sosescu family won't be tempted for no reason. Yu Yi said indifferently, among the 21 surviving Black Soul envoys, one of them who was on vacation came to this ancient castle. The new boss of the club kept silent for a while. It gave the impaler Duke the power of immortality. It might have pushed the impaler Duke to be killed and dismembered. A Black Soul envoy once came to this ancient castle. The wife of the former patriarch of the Sosescu family was tempted and drank the blood of the impaler Duke secretly, which led to a tragedy. The inheritance rule of the Sosescu family passed down from generation to generation. The impaler Duke would die due to weakness one day. But before that, the club could continue to obtain souls from the Sosescu family for the purpose of sealing the devil. This might be the tip of the iceberg of the countless unknown dark side of the club in the past. Luaccio suddenly shook his head and sighed. The former patriarch was really good at doing business. Yu Yi asked, "Master, don't you think it's inappropriate?" Luaccio shook his head again and said indifferently, "Nothing. I just feel the novice teaching came a little early, but it's good to be early." Yu Yi smiled but didn't say anything. Luaccio looked at the ancient castle thoughtfully and suddenly said, "Who's that guy jumping around in the castle?" Yu Yi said, "Probably a member of the Black Order. Not bad. It seems they have recovered a lot after hundreds of years of recuperation." Black Order. In the evening it started to drizzle. Mr. Jonathan of the Sosescu family suddenly made all the young people of this generation, those under 30 years old, anxious. With the help of the old butler, the white-haired Mr. Jonathan led 11 young people of the family to the courtyard between the east and the west wing, quietly. They passed through the flower hedge and came to the front of an ancient well in the middle of the rose wall maze. The butler took an ancient key from Mr. Jonathan's hand and walked to the edge of the ancient well. He groped on the body of the ancient well and finally dug out a piece of brick, revealing a keyhole. The key was inserted and twisted, and a sound like a millstone turning was heard. The ancient well in front of them suddenly split from the middle and then opened to both sides. At the same time, Mr. Jonathan said with an indifferent voice, "Go in, all of you. I'll choose the inheritor from you inside." The weird scene in front of them made them hesitate, but more of them yearned for the huge wealth of the Sosescu family. Kista frowned. Osmond wasn't here. Jonathan didn't call Osmond. Chapter 79. Genius 1, Second Remember Love / Go / Little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. You can't get souls by killing with your own hands. Only souls obtained through trading can be sacrificed. The second trading rule of the club. If the other party is malicious, the club boss has the right to eliminate it. The 10th trading rule of the club. After the ancient well was opened, a corner of a stone staircase leading to the underground was exposed. After waiting for a while, Jonathan walked in with an oil lamp in his hand, as if he was waiting for the air inside to be changed completely. The old butler stopped outside the entrance, saying humbly, "Young masters and young ladies, please come in." Kista's gaze tightened. He was the first one to follow Jonathan into it. After him, the others also walked down the stone staircase, one by one. The butler didn't walk in at last, but just waited in front of the ancient well. There's such a basement in the ancient castle. It seems to have a history of over 100 years. Maybe more than that. It was about 13 meters underground. After reaching the bottom, there was a passageway that could only allow one person to pass. After walking forward for about 20 or 30 meters, there was a pig iron door. The door had been rusty because of the humidity all year round. Jonathan opened the door with the key again, and the others walked in. It was a spacious space. The whole structure was circular, with 12 stone pillars as support on the edge. This was a space about 300 square meters in size. On the ring-shaped walls, there were many carvings of similar figures, wearing an ancient robe, holding a sword with both hands. This was the head of the Sosescu family in a certain generation. There seemed to be such a person among the portraits of the heads of the past generations kept in the castle. And the weirdest thing was that there was a stone coffin in the center of this underground space, which was placed on 3 circular steps. Mr. Jonathan suddenly turned around and walked to the door, saying indifferently, "You guys sit down. Don't say anything. I'll come back in half an hour, and then I'll choose one of you as the successor." After saying that, Jonathan closed the iron door directly, ignoring the questions of these descendants. The rule passed down from generation to generation was to use the souls of the descendants as the price to seal the devil. But even if the soul was used as the price, the sealing time was limited. Then the life was also counted, and the longest sealing time was used. Once the sealing time was up, it would be the end of the sealer's life. Only those who were young and had powerful souls could be sealed for the longest period of time. There was nothing much to say about the younger generation. Only those under the age of 30 would be chosen. As for a powerful soul, for hundreds of years, even though they were sealed, the demons still wanted to escape. The devil was cursing the entire Ceausescu family. Those descendants with powerful souls could hear the whispers of the devil as long as they were close to it. Some of them could even see some strange illusions. Keep it within half an hour. You can hear and see, but you won't be affected. Of course, in order to prevent the later generations from knowing this secret early and disguising themselves to obtain the right of inheritance, they had to keep silent at the beginning. The one with the biggest reaction would be the qualified successor. For hundreds of years, the Ceausescu family had always followed this ancient rule. Jonathan had been like that 30 years ago, and his uncle had been like that even before that. He had no other choice. At first, the rule was set because of the ancestors' resentment. However, as the sealed demons suffered endless pain, the Ceausescu family had no choice but to follow this rule. Year after year, the endless pain accumulated the demons' resentment to the Ceausescu family. If the soul wasn't pure, it would affect the strength of the seal and give the demon a chance to escape. Then it would be a devastating blow to the Ceausescu family. After all, the trading place was a place where the transaction fee depended on the transaction fee. To put it simply, you get what you pay for. Before sunrise, Jonathan counted the time silently. Suddenly, he heard the sound of footsteps coming from the front. Jonathan couldn't help but frown. Who else came in? The butler? No, the butler couldn't come in, and he wouldn't come in either. In front of him, a young man who was also holding an oil lamp appeared in front of Jonathan. Jonathan frowned in surprise. Osmond, why are you here? Osmond opened his eyes and looked at Jonathan's expression, saying indifferently, You don't want me to come? Jonathan frowned. It's none of your business here. Go back. Osmond suddenly sneered. Sure enough, the shameful things of the Ceausescu family are hidden here, aren't they? Get out. Jonathan suddenly shouted in a deep voice. This is not a place where you should come. Why? Are you afraid that I'll know the dirty, despicable, and inhumane things you're hiding? Osmond walked in step by step. Jonathan was about to say something, but at this moment he suddenly heard miserable screams coming from the door. Angry screams. Loud screams. Jonathan's face slightly changed. He didn't care about Osmond's arrival, but opened the door quickly. The scene in front of him made him scared out of his wits. What did he see? Several people fell in a pool of blood. Obviously, the first to fall were women. At the same time, a young man of the family was pressed to the ground by several other people. The young man held a dagger in his hand, stained with blood. Crazy. Let me go. Let me go. Only those who survive can get the real inheritance of the Ceausescu family. All of you must die. That young man who was covered was shouting crazily at this moment. Jonathan felt it was inconceivable when he heard it. Could it be that the whisper or fantasy brought by the devil was so strong that it could make people lose their minds in the blink of an eye? No, he could hear the whisper of the devil as if it was making a mocking sound. It wasn't a tease, but like watching a wonderful show. Jonathan could feel it, because he was the sealer of the previous generation. Not only the young man who was covered, but the rest also showed a ferocious look on their faces, as if they were bewitched. Under their eyes, it was red. It was emitting a strange red color. Crazy! Stop them! Jonathan shouted at this moment. Go and stop them! Who? Kista! Kista! He was old, and now he was looking at Kista, who lowered his head and kept silent. You also want to die, right? Unexpectedly, Kista raised his head at this moment, staring at his grandfather with hatred. What a vicious old man! You want to bury all of us here, don't you? Kista, What nonsense are you talking about? Nonsense? Kista suddenly became like those strange young men, with his eyes dark red and his body slightly trembling. I heard it. I heard it. There's a devil hiding here. Sure enough. The secret of the Sosescu family. Sure enough, it's your selfishness. Your selfishness, you old bastard. I don't know what you're talking about. Jonathan took a deep breath, saying in a low voice, Obviously, you've also lost your mind. But I need you to wake up right now. Ha ha, Osmond. Osmond. Kista pointed at Osmond, who was behind Jonathan, sneering. There's no such thing as choosing an heir. You've already chosen an heir. You let us come here just to fill this devil with our lives according to the ancient family teachings, right? Then Osmond can get everything of the Sosescu family easily and happily. I don't know what you're talking about, Jonathan said angrily. I didn't choose the heir of the will. No, Kista sneered. You still don't want to admit it? Then why don't you let Osmond in? Isn't he a member of this family? This is not something you should care about. Now, stop everything here right now. Kista laughed. You don't dare to say it, right? You don't dare to say the truth, right? You don't dare to say that Osmond is not your grandson, but your biological son, right? You don't dare to say that it was because of your ugliness and filth that your daughter got pregnant with your child, right? You. Jonathan's face changed dramatically. He gasped suddenly, grasping his chest painfully. You're feeling guilty, right? You're going to die, right? You're going to die, so you made such a decision, right? You know, Osmond is the most suitable person, but you don't want him to bear everything of the Sosescu family, so you'd rather sacrifice us. Who? Jonathan couldn't finish a sentence. Once he opened his mouth, he felt a strong pain in his heart. You vicious old man. I won't let my fate be controlled by you. Kista's eyes were completely red. I won't give up everything of mine. The one who should bear it should bear it. You. As he spoke, Kista pounced on Jonathan in a frenzy. Surprisingly, he also hid a small knife in his sleeve. The knife stabbed into Jonathan's stomach without any suspense, and then it twitched fiercely. Jonathan's eyes opened wide, and he finally fell to the ground. He felt that his life was passing away quickly. He saw Kista turned around and rushed toward Osmond. Osmond was shocked. Well, what a wonderful sound. In front of the entrance of the ancient well, Miss Maid of the Club was tucking her hair behind her ears and listening attentively. She turned her head and looked at Luaccio with dimples on her face. I haven't heard such a wonderful sound for a long time. Although they hadn't known each other for a long time, Boss Luo still had a feeling of knowing each other for the first time. Luaccio glanced at the old butler who fell to the side. He saw with his own eyes that Osmond had knocked him unconscious and then gone in. He didn't have Yu Ye's hearing for the time being, but judging from the maid's happy expression, something must be going on inside. Let's go down and have a look. If it was the root of the disaster that had been buried in the club for hundreds of years, then he would face it head-on. While thinking about this, Yu Yi suddenly tilted her head slightly. Luaccio also sensed something and turned around. A nun was walking slowly on the grassland. This place is so desolate. I didn't expect there to be other guests. The nun said softly. Some of Yu Ye's descriptions about the Black Order floated in Luaccio's mind, but he stepped aside and said indifferently, We have no intention to participate in what happens inside. We are just onlookers. The nun suddenly said, That is to say, no matter what I do, you two don't plan to pay attention to it, right? Luaccio nodded. I really just want to collect the debt, but it's hard to believe such words. The nun suddenly sneered. Especially the guy who hides his head but shows his tail. Luaccio shook his head. No matter how much he said, it was not practical to take action. So he directly stepped aside and made way for the nun to enter the underground chamber. The nun was silent for a while and walked straight toward the entrance of the ancient well. When she passed by Luaccio's position, she suddenly lowered her body and showed a half-squatting posture. At the same time, the lower hem of the nun's robe was lifted up at the same time. There were no stockings on her beautiful legs, but a black gun bag was tied on her exposed thigh, a silver-white pistol. She pulled it out. It was done in one breath, like moving clouds and flowing water. Luo Chio's first reaction when he saw all this happening up close was, so cool. However, when the nun pulled out the silver-white pistol hidden on her thigh and pointed it at Luochio, her body flew backward at the same time. Because at the moment when the nun pointed the pistol at Luochio, the club servant girl had already kicked the nun and sent her flying. Boss Luo just sighed, but the other side intuitively felt this nun seemed to be a Hui, yen, PS1. These chapters, as described in the novel, are a transitional plot similar to a beginner's lesson. By the way, I'll mention the club style. After there are monsters, there are also some strange existences, so Boss Luo won't be too active. PS2. But I like the new character, Nun Lamia's, very much. As for why I like it, of course, it's because I made this character. A nun with a gun under her skirt. Do you like it? Do you like it? Do you like it? PS3. So, is what I wrote an urban novel or not? Of course, it's wonderful story in the guise of an urban novel. Laugh. PS4. Wait, even if it's a transitional plot, as the protagonist, will he not be active at the end? There's one more update in the evening. It may be late because I have to go to the hospital for infusion. I can't stand the fever, so I may take a nap when I come back. PS5. Who can help me out? Equals. Chapter 80. Genius 1, second, remember love, /go, /little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. The powerful kick sent the nun's body flying, but she quickly regained her balance. She spread her legs and landed on the ground. At the same time, she bent her body to counteract the inertia of her body. But this was not the end. Lamias looked at the woman, who was tall in the eyes of Easterners, but in the eyes of Westerners, she was still thin and weak. Unexpectedly, she was able to burst out with such a terrifying power. Lamias did not dare to be careless. It seemed that being careless or not would not make any difference, because the moment she stopped her body, the other party had already attacked again. As if she disdained to use her hands, this time it was another fierce kick. Lamias only had time to cross her hands to block this terrifying kick. This time, the strength seemed to be even more terrifying. Lamias even felt that the bones in her hands were about to break. At the same time, because of the second kick, Lamias also could not hold the silver pistol in her hand. The pistol was thrown into the air at the same time, drawing an arc, and finally fell into Luochio's hand. In the blink of an eye, Lamias felt that she was completely in a disadvantageous position, but she was still very calm, wholeheartedly trying to catch Ye's movements. Too fast, it was simply inhuman agility. Lamias had to admit, even with the high-intensity training she received, she could not keep up with the other party. Lamias secretly frowned, reached out and directly grabbed the silver cross on her neck. If possible, she did not want to use the hidden thing in the cross, but the fact did not give her enough time. Her every move was completely under Ye's control. A terrifying, heavy blow once again hit Lamias's abdomen faster than she could react. She instantly lost consciousness. Let's stop here. Yi did not ask why, and directly stood behind Luochio. At this time, Luochio looked at the nun in front of him, and at the same time weighed the pistol in his hand and said, "A revolver with 10 cartridges, and it is much heavier than the average one. It should have increased the number of bullets, but also retain the original power. But if it is not loaded, it actually looks better." With that, Luochio intended to throw the revolver away, but after weighing the hand, he found that he was not skilled enough to complete this action, so he simply put it down and let it go. She pointed the gun, but the gun was not loaded. Either she was stupid, or she did not have the intention to kill. He felt that this nun should be more inclined to the latter, perhaps out of a death-seeking curiosity. She wanted to try the idea of who are these two weird guys. Boss Luo handed the modified revolver to Yi, and then said indifferently, "Modify her memory a little so that she doesn't see us. And I also want to see what she actually wants to do." Yu Yi nodded, walked to Lamia's side, and reached out to touch her forehead. Luocio said at this time, "Let's ignore the Black Order for the time being." Yu Yi nodded gently and said, "It has been 100 years. It doesn't matter if it's another 10 years. It's better to say that in another 10 years, there will be more high-quality investors." Luocio didn't comment, and then began to scan the ground. A few seconds later, Luocio walked a few steps away, bent down, and picked up a speed loader from the grass. "I just saw it fall from the skirt." Yu Yi walked to Luocio's side and handed the revolver in her hands. Luocio loaded the bullets, unskillfully, and then casually aimed at it. "This lady didn't seem to want it back just now, right? It belongs to Master." Yu Yi said what Luocio wanted to hear. Take it as a trophy or compensation for this nun-offending master. Yu Yi was so awesome. Lamia's frowned secretly, and at the same time rubbed her eyebrows and couldn't help but be at a loss. She looked around carefully. There was no one around. Years of good training made her feel that there was something strange about this. Lamia's subconsciously touched her thigh. Her weapon was gone, but she went to stand in front of the entrance of the ancient well. There was a blank space of 3 to 5 minutes. However, during this blank space, she could only remember that she seemed to be absent-minded. What on earth happened? However, the faint sound from the underground secret room made Lamia's know that she couldn't waste time. Lamia's ran through the long stairs swiftly and soon came to the door of the secret room. There was a very strong smell of blood in the air, and several young people were killing each other. Even though there was a lot of blood on their bodies, they seemed to know no pain. Only death was waiting for them. At this time, Osmond and Kista were entangled together. There were many wounds on Osmond's body caused by the dagger, and now he was pushed to the wall by Kista. He was struggling to resist the dagger that Kista intended to stab into his heart. It seemed that he couldn't hold on anymore. Lamia's almost didn't stop or hesitate, and quickly walked over. "It's you." Kista glanced around, showing a surprised expression. Almost at the same time, Lamia's moved like lightning and directly chopped Kista's arm and took the dagger from his hand. Lamia's didn't stop. In the next moment, she quickly grasped Osmond's hand and at the same time held the dagger and directly stabbed into Kista's chest. Blood was red. Osmond felt that his wrist started to move under Lamia's strength, turning the dagger in Kista's chest. Kista screamed, as if he had lost his mind, and said miserably, You said you would help me." "Yes. God said that people who commit suicide can't enter heaven." Lamia's wiped the blood on her face. "So I helped you reduce the possibility of not entering heaven." "Ah." Seeing that Kista finally fell down, Osmond suddenly felt panic. Not only himself, this nun who called herself Lamia's seemed to have met Kista before. "Who are you?" Lamia's acted as if she didn't hear him, and directly walked to Jonathan. Jonathan, who was already on the verge of death, looked at the approaching nun and subconsciously moved his body. Did you cause this tragedy?" Jonathan asked weakly. Lamia sneered. This laughter didn't need to be said. "What's your purpose?" Jonathan was frightened and angry. "Is it for that devil?" Lamia said indifferently, "Am I sick? Release the legendary Impaler Duke?" "Then you." Lamia suddenly took off the hat on her head, revealing her real face. Seeing Lamia's appearance, Jonathan seemed to go back to a long time ago and said in a daze, "Fair." "You're fair?" "Sorry, I'm just her daughter." Lamia said indifferently, 23 years. "It's time for you to pay for your sins. Being killed by your own grandson, watching your descendants killing each other. This kind of grief and despair is like falling into the endless hell. Can you feel it?" Lamia squatted in front of Jonathan, squinting her eyes, and whispered in his ear, "Feel this despair! Feel the despair of a woman who had a lover but was raped by her most respected adoptive father." Instantly, Jonathan's face turned ashen, and his turbid eyes were filled with endless remorse and guilt. He stopped struggling and let his body lie down. He stared blankly at the ceiling, his lips trembling, and no one knew what he was saying. At the end of his life, no one knew whether it was regret or resentment. At this time, Lamias made a praying gesture with her hands and whispered something in front of Jonathan, and then stood up. Everyone had fallen. Only he and Lamias were left. Osmond stared at Lamias in disbelief and said in disbelief, "You said, your mother is—" Lamias said indifferently, "First of all, the letter I gave you is not made up. It was indeed written by my mother, and at the same time, it was also written by your mother. But the content inside is 100% true. The only thing that was not mentioned in the letter was that I was born a few minutes earlier than you. You are my sister? We are just from the same mother," Lamias said expressionlessly. "You are indeed Jonathan's child, and I am not. You did all this just for revenge. You deliberately gave the letter to me, so that I would also break in here? Although you have the sinner's blood in your body, half of it is also my mother's blood. Shouldn't you witness the sinner's end with your own eyes?" Lamias sneered, "But don't worry, I won't kill you. Instead, I'll let you inherit all the wealth of this family." While saying, Lamias took out her mobile phone from her clothes. "It's me. There's no problem now. Arrange the staff to come over. Speaking of which, have you seen the appearance of the descendants of Sosescu family in the underground chamber? It seems that they have the same symptoms." Yi nodded. The little white mouse has the same reaction. Luacho muttered, "So many people have taken it directly without knowing." "The problem should be the diet." Yi pressed her finger against her lips. "Well, it seems that the Black Order has done a lot of work in advance this time. They not only took all the wealth of Sosescu family into their hands, but also carried away the left hand of the impaling Duke. On the other hand, the medicine with unknown composition may also be developed by the Black Order." Luacio, who had said that he would ignore the Black Order for the time being, didn't say anything. He just looked at the grayish-white light in his palm. The club had the most intuitive judgment about the value of the soul. The grayish-white soul was above average, and the pink soul was good. The deal between the Sosescu family and the club didn't continue. As for what would happen to the left hand of the impaling Duke, Osmond, Lamias, and the Black Order, in the eyes of Boss Luo, it would be a matter of the future. The first volume was finished. Yen PS1. The first volume ends here. Thank you for your support. PS2. Smooth. Although there are only 2 chapters today, there are more than 7,000 words in total. I think I've worked very hard. I even went for an infusion today, _smiley face angle. _PS3. Let's fight again tomorrow equals PS4. That's why I'm praising PS for this time. Astigmatism is not worth mentioning. Immoral fraud. Kengu Yao. Xiaoming Chujue. Luin Qindao. I am your brother Yi. Dan Ao. Saber-Hammer. Rotten Phoenix. Who pees the bed. Cheningbu. Existence with 5 nicknames. Frost stains the maple leaves red. Thank you all for your tips. I don't know if I missed anything because the background is checked every month. As for the display of the author's assistant app, I also pulled it equals. Chapter 81. Genius 1. Second, remember love /go/little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. There are traces of a huge impact at the scene. The surrounding limbs are twisted. The body must have suffered many violent impacts. Well, what kind of method could make a person like this? And there is more than one. Officer Ma frowned. The above words were not said by him. I'm sorry I'm late. Someone threw a few thieves at the entrance of the police station like a lunatic early in the morning. Well, why is she here? The young police officer stood beside Officer Ma and whispered, Sir Ma, we dare not stop her. Bullshit! Why don't you dare to stop her? Officer Ma suddenly scolded in a low voice. The young police officer said helplessly she said she would shout molestation, and Officer Ma frowned again. And what? And she also said, whether you believe it or not, if she really shouted, Sir Ma would peel off our skin first. Officer Ma waved his hand helplessly and walked to Rin Xiling dejectedly. He said kindly, sister-in-law, the colleagues collecting evidence will come soon. Are you? Rin Xiling didn't even turn her head. Instead, she stared at the corpses on the ground. One of them was a young man with dyed blonde hair. There was a black snake tattoo on his bare arm. As for the others, they were still wearing school uniforms. They should be high school students. Xiaoma, who do you think the murderer is? It's very strange. How can a normal person have such a strong hand? Well, why don't you talk? Sub-editor Rin finally turned her head to look at Officer Ma. Looking at Officer Ma's sad eyes, she suddenly said, "Oh, I'll leave later. I'm just passing by on the way to work." Officer Ma took a deep breath, suddenly put his hands on Ren Xiling's shoulders, and then turned her body around forcefully. He pushed her body and shouted loudly, "Get out!" Before Ren Xiling could react, she had been pushed out of the car repair shop by Officer Ma. Officer Ma stood inside the cordon, looking at Ren Xiling outside the cordon, and seriously ordered his subordinates, "You guys keep an eye on her. If this girl dares to come in, molest her. After molesting her, write a 20-point self-criticism report and then do 20 rounds of physical training on the playground." After that, Officer Ma angrily turned around and walked into the garage again. The young police officer looked at Ren Xiling, who was in a bad mood, and he felt even worse. He begged bitterly, "Madam Rin, please don't make things difficult for us. We're just working." Tut! After greeting the young police officer with the third finger of her left hand, Ren Xiling suddenly received a call. "Oh, you found her? Okay, I'll go." The sacrifice was successful. After sacrificing Jonathan's soul, Boss Luo exited the third floor of the basement and found an account book that didn't look so long. He planned to study it from today onwards. The teleportation range seemed to have expanded a little, and the teleportation time seemed to have become shorter, although it was very short at the beginning. But the proficiency during the teleportation could still be felt very well. When he walked back to the hall, Luo Qiu found a beige sofa made of cotton. He was stunned for a moment. "Love, go, little, say, W. Chu he seemed to have seen it somewhere, this sofa." He shook his head and couldn't remember it. But there was one thing he remembered very clearly. That was, this outfit was at the club counter, with its back facing him. A nun's robe? It was exactly the same as the Black Order nun he met in the Sosescu family's castle. But from the back she was wiping the counter. Yu Yi. The woman in the nun's robe suddenly turned around. It was Miss Servant Girl of the club. Yu Yi gracefully lifted the black skirt in front of Luocho and bowed. "Master, what can I do for you?" Actually, it was slightly different. If the nun he met before was wearing a complete set of robes, then the one in front of him was probably magically modified, right? It must have been magically modified, right? Even if the split skirt wasn't lifted up deliberately, it could still reveal the scenery hidden by the skirt while walking. "Why did you suddenly?" Luocho looked at Ye's outfit with confusion. This Miss Servant Girl liked to dress up, which could be seen from the time they spent together. But he didn't expect her interest to be so extensive. Because Master seemed to be interested in nuns when we were in the Sosescu family's castle. Yu Yi smiled and suddenly turned her body. The originally soft skirt naturally spread out, making the scenery better. "Do you like it?" Honestly, the reason why Boss Luo looked at the nun more was that the nun's posture when she took out the gun under her skirt was very cool. At the same time, he was also interested in guns because of his father, so he paid more attention to the modified revolver. Therefore, he looked at it more. "Did you make it yourself?" Luocho didn't intend to dampen Miss Servant Girl's enthusiasm, but delicately skipped this topic. "Yes." Yu Yi gave an affirmative answer. Sure enough, it was magically modified. But Was it appropriate for a club to appear in front of customers in such a manner? Luocio smiled faintly. A woman would dress up for her lover. Although Yi didn't necessarily have such thoughts, and might simply want to take care of all aspects of the club boss. But if someone could think of ways to satisfy him from these subtle aspects, why should he be stingy with his smile? He suddenly remembered where he had seen this new sofa before. I should be more free during the summer vacation. Luocio suddenly looked at Yi, saying softly, "How about going to Russia with me? I've never seen such a place in my life." "Okay." Along with Miss Servant Girl's smile, the bell at the door of the club rang again. About 27 or 28 years old, a man appeared at the door with hesitation and surprise. "Old Mo, I've prepared the meal. Heat it up as you see fit." Mo Hongchi woke up early, rushing the custom-made wood carvings in his workshop. Suddenly, he looked at his wife outside the door and asked, "Xiao Fei went out again?" His wife said worriedly, "That kid didn't come back that night. I was so worried. I don't know what he's doing these 2 days, leaving early and coming back late." "Old Mo, you're our kid. Have you learned bad things?" Mo Hongchi smiled. "The kid has grown up. Give him some freedom. Don't you know whether the kid you watched growing up is good or bad? Only you know." His wife gave him a stare and went to work. Of course, her kid was the kindest. At this time, Mo Xiaofei was chewing the bread energetically. These 2 days, he always stepped into the classroom punctually when it was almost time, because before that he was patrolling around the school. It seems that there are not many people who do bad things in the school. It's time to expand the scope of sweeping. He finished the bread in a few bites and threw away the wrapping paper in his hand. When the crumpled wrapping paper was about to fall to the ground, it suddenly shot out and finally fell into the trash not far away. And Mo Xiaofei smiled. "Let me protect this unfair society." Yen 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 PS1. Thanks to No and No. Sifang Yu Gu Jin Zhou. Hibazishin. Kevin. Book friend 160707134222994. The Heavy Rain Ate You. Saberhammer. Ju. Taoist Tinglong for their tips. PS2. Asking for votes every day equals. Chapter 82. Genius 1. Second. Remember love, go, /little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Gua Yushua walked down the street dejectedly. It wasn't even 9 in the morning, but he was the only one who had started drinking black beer. He felt so lost. You got into a very good university. Your major is also popular. This job is good. Do it well, and you will have a bright future. Brother, she is a good girl. She is a housewife. Win-win. I will treat you well. Will you be my girlfriend? Little Gua, let's invite your girlfriend to the celebration dinner tonight. Is she your girlfriend? Oh, not bad, not bad. She is a simple girl. Is she in your company? Little Gua, I don't mean to criticize you. I am telling you because I think highly of you. This girl is not suitable for you. You are a talent in the company. You will attend more banquets in the future and have more connections. It is not good if there is no one who can match you. In the circle, men should interact more, but women should also interact with each other. Why should I learn to draw? Even if I earn money, I can save it. Clothes? No. It is enough to make up for the old ones. Change jobs? I am very happy with my current job. My colleagues at the gas station are very nice. By the way, I met one of your colleagues at the gas station today. What is his name? Are you drinking again? Don't drink too much. Your stomach is not good. This is not the way to socialize, okay? Yushua, I don't know how to dance. I don't understand a word of the people here. It is so awkward. Let's go first. Should we invite little Gua to the weekend gathering? But let me make it clear first. My tigress said it is okay to teach him, but it is better not to invite his girlfriend. Really, they are all bringing their families. Isn't it embarrassing for little Gua to come alone? TSK, that is his true love. It is none of your business. Maybe he likes country girls. He likes the taste of that country. Ha 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 ha. I am going to work. By the way, the lunchbox is ready. Remember to rest at noon. Today, it is your favorite braised eggplant. I have not liked braised eggplant for a long time. In that case, you feel that your girlfriend isn't good enough, right? This was Guo Yushua's first reaction, from disbelief, then shock, then fear, and finally reverence. He didn't know why he would confess to a stranger, and under such strange circumstances. Maybe this guy wasn't human. Urban legends? Gods and ghosts? Guo Yushua had thought about it and was also worried about it. However, when he said this naturally, he did not know why, but he felt much more relaxed. No, Wenwen is very good. Guo Yushua shook his head. It's just that people should look forward and not stand still. What's the difference between this and not being good enough? Luochio was not very interested in the new guest. But since he was a guest of the club, he couldn't just ignore him. After returning from Romania, Boss Luo began to think about how he should completely adapt to the various guests that would appear in the future, and even the source of guests. Since you feel that she can't keep up with you, why are you forcing yourself to maintain this relationship? Luochio began to do what a club owner should do. How to guide the customer. No, I still love her. Guo Yushua solemnly said, I promise to treat her well for the rest of my life. Luochio said indifferently, but obviously you are also entangled in this relationship, even entangled in the original promise, aren't you? Guo Yushua seemed to want to say something, but he kept silent in the end. Luochio then said, if the source of entanglement is not suitable, if you become suitable as you wish, will the result be different? Suitable. Yes, if Wenwen could become more motivated, willing to improve herself, become more knowledgeable, and even become more elegant, Guo Yushua couldn't help imagining the ideal girlfriend in his mind. He was perplexed. Can I? Of course. Customer, isn't it because of this idea that you are willing to confide in me? What do I need to pay? First of all, you use 1 day of your time to exchange for your girlfriend to not be so boring. How about that? Only 1 day. Guo Yushua said inconceivably. Luochio said indifferently, if you just want her to become interested in something, it's about the same price. If it's only 1 day, I'm willing. Welcome next time. After fiercely kissing the 5 red banknotes in his hand, Brother Chong, who was called Mouse Chong, looked at Ren Xiling with a smile. Thank you. Next time you have such a good thing, remember to call me. Ren Xiling suddenly frowned. Mouse Chong, don't gamble anymore. Go home more often. Mouse Chong grinned his yellow teeth. The fortune-teller said, I'm lucky this year. Ren Xiling shook her head and didn't want to say more, but walked into the stairs of an old building. Climbing up the stairs of 7 floors, Sub-editor Rin pressed the doorbell of this floor without blushing or panting. Soon an old woman opened the door, looking at Rin Xiling with confusion. You are... Excuse me, is this King Kong's house? Do you know my son? Yes, I'm his friend. I need to talk to him about something. Wait, he's sleeping. You are that reporter? King Kong frowned through the security door. Obviously, he recognized this woman who could find his house. What's the matter? Where's Jaya? Ren Xiling came straight to the point. Lin Gung overdosed and is still in intensive care. His secretary fell from the building. Now, Jaya is missing. You're the bodyguard hired by Heaven Shadow. You should know something. Sorry, you've got the wrong person. King Kong said indifferently. As you said, I'm just an employee. You don't know even though you're her friend. Let alone me, who only meets her during working hours. While saying, King Kong closed the door directly. Mom, if this woman continues to knock, you call the police and say that someone is harassing a house. Ren Xiling heard King Kong's words clearly from outside the door. He was obviously talking to her. Sub-editor Rin was also hot-tempered when she was young. In recent years, she had become a good mother. But now, she couldn't stand the indifference of being rejected at the door. She was so angry that her eyes widened. Tut, I don't believe that you don't go downstairs and find a woman if you don't have a physiological need. F asterisk CK. Subeditor made a phone call directly. Hello, boss. I'm on leave today. Why? Do you want to see my period? What? You don't believe this reason. Do you believe that I'll send the sanitary pad to your house? I believe that. Yin PS. I also believe that. Reading big official will vote for me, right? Chapter 83. Genius remembers love go little in 1 second. This is a wonderful novel for you to read. Master number 9. Don't you want to go in? There was no other way. Black Soul number 9 had been wandering outside the antique shop for several days. Love go little, say, but in Taeyeonzi's eyes it was meaningless. Today the Onyx Soul newbie finally couldn't hold it in any longer. Ignoring the cold attitude of the Onyx Soul big boss, he was prepared to ask him properly. You've been following me for several days. Black Soul number 9 suddenly looked at Taeyeonzi. Well, it was indeed only a few days. You can go to find a customer by yourself. Black Soul number 9 said again. Taeyeonzi gave a start. Although he was reluctant to leave, he was secretly happy. However, there were so many people in Dada City. In order to avoid the embarrassment, like the first time when he asked for credit from the boss, he had to make a long-term plan. Thinking of this, Taeyeonzi walked towards the antique shop called Guyujai. Unexpectedly, he was frightened by the voice of Black Soul number 9 and stopped after taking 2 steps. What are you going to do? Taeyeonzi turned around. Master number 9, I'm going to go in. Well, I'll go to other places to have a look. Taeyeonzi cursed in his heart. Bitch is so pretentious. Why didn't you tell me earlier that this is your territory? Besides, you haven't done anything for several days. What do you mean? But he still left silently. During this period of time, he knew how to find a good customer. Of course, he didn't need to blindly search for one. As long as he was willing to extend his service time, he could get the method to distinguish a good customer from the club. But this century-old old man was really reluctant to pay the price calculated in decades. You wretched little bitch. When I become the Black Soul envoy with the best performance, and then the chief steward of the Black Soul envoys, and the most popular person, I'll let you wash my feet. Black Soul number 9 watched Taeyeonzi leave in silence, and said in a low voice, Idiot, no wonder you were plotted against and trapped for 500 years. But it's okay to be sinister. Having ambition is also a good thing. A black Maserati Ghibli slowly drove to the entrance of Guyujai. Black Soul number 9 looked at the old woman, who was helped out of the car by the driver with a perplexed expression. Why was this so? Recently she had been in a bad mood, so she wasn't in the mood to look for a sugar daddy like before. You, who are you? It was still the old city district. Luochio sat on the sofa in his old house, looking at the club's account book. These were the things he needed to collect in the future. Some would take a very long time, but some would be within 1 or 2 years or even shorter. Did it push forward the progress of mankind or... While he was thinking, Miss Maid, who hadn't been tired of the modified nun's robe, came to Luochio. Master, the little butterfly monster is not here. She should have left. Luochio nodded, closing the account book and asking, Have you found anything? Yu Yi gave Luochio a folder of documents. These are the names of the property owners of the Everlasting Heart Group after the land acquisition in the Old City District. Basically, they are the family members of the senior managers in the group. Luochio lowered his head to read the documents. Yu Yi continued, It's probably a drama of the left hand being turned over to the right hand. The group acquires the land at a lower price. When the development policy is out in the future, there will be a lot of land bidding when we reconstruct the old city district and attract investment. Therefore, if we succeed, we'll probably acquire a large amount of resources in the old city district at the lowest price. Boss Luo was very clear about his intention, saying frankly, As long as it doesn't collapse naturally, I want this house to be preserved forever. Yu Yi said softly, As long as you're willing to, master. Luochio shook his head. If I'm a customer of the club, I'm the one who has the most stringent transaction conditions. Logically speaking, even though learning a foreign language in 5 days seemed to be a good deal, Luo Qiu understood that it was the same as the long-distance travel he got in exchange for. In order to do his homework better, if it had nothing to do with the business of the club, the altar would be very stingy to him. Regarding this part, in order to make himself feel better, Boss Luo once again imagined a little girl's voice that could make people feel happy. You should solve your own private affairs by yourself. Even the chairman of the company can't misappropriate the company's assets. But it wasn't impossible to misappropriate it as long as it was beneficial to the club. F***CK, since it was profitable, it could be used openly. Do you intend to force the development plan of X city and change the development area? Please pay 10 years of lifespan. After calculating his remaining lifespan after several transactions, Boss Luo realized that if he really wanted to force the development plan of X city, his lifespan would be in arrears. He couldn't help doubting Ye's words. As long as I'm willing. If one day I want to force the world's will, how much lifespan do I need to recharge? Think about it. Will you become stronger if you don't recharge? Suddenly, the new boss of the club couldn't help but think of a sentence that was widely spread by a boss. Let me think about it. Luoqiu looked at Yu Yi and said, but he suddenly thought of something. As long as there was profit, the club itself had no moral principles. So, did it mean that as long as there was profit, he could adjust things according to his own will? Boss Luo looked at that heavy account book and became absent-minded again. In the evening, when Guo Yushua returned home, he was stunned looking at his girlfriend who appeared in front of him with a sweet smile. He suddenly felt as if he had been reborn. Guo Yushua subconsciously said, Wen, why are you? Wen touched her own hair and then turned around in front of Guo Yushua. I don't know why I suddenly wanted to change my hairstyle today. Then my colleagues accompanied me to buy some clothes. Do I look good? Very good. Guo Yushua's eyes brightened. Wen suddenly said, like a bitter gourd, but after this round of hairdressing and buying clothes, I've used up a month's worth of my salary. God, I'm crazy. No, I can't waste it like this. Don't waste it. Guo Yushua hurriedly said, once or twice. Wen just shook her head. I don't have many chances to wear these clothes. Oh, I can wear them when my eldest uncle marries his wife next month. Oh, no, it's too ostentatious. Even if she changed her hairstyle and wore fashionable clothes, it was just a temporary interest and didn't change anything. Not knowing why, the original joyful mood was suddenly diluted. Guo Yushua subconsciously looked out of the window. That mysterious place, indeed, had a strange power. It only reduced 1 day's lifespan. Yen PS1. First of all, the famous words of a certain boss were said by Boss Luo. I believe that a certain boss would never argue with a character in a novel. So it's Boss Luo who is slandering a certain boss, not me equals. Equals PS2. A book friend privately messaged me and asked Boss Luo whether the lowly voice in his imagination had a prototype or not. As the author, I can responsibly tell you that, of course, the prototype is lowly Yuan. Smile. PS3. Thanks. Chapter 84. Genius remembers love in 1 second / small. This is a wonderful novel for you to read. A paper crane was standing on the eaves. No one would pay attention to a paper crane on the eaves, because no one cared, no one knew that this paper crane could actually move. However, things other than humans had obviously noticed the moving paper crane. Pa! At this moment, when the paper crane moved on the eaves and magically floated, it was suddenly patted by something and directly flattened. The murderer muttered, Another one? What does the Eastern Taoist want to do? Black Soul number 18 had patted off more than 5 paper cranes in the past few days. Black Soul number 18 had seen all kinds of strange occult skills over the long years. This paper crane seemed to be a kind of ancient Oriental magic called guide crane. It was used to find people. All of them were patted off by Black Soul number 18. Black Soul number 18 wouldn't think that this thing was looking for her, so the only possibility was that it was the person she was protecting. It seems that it's necessary to report to Miss Yi. Black soul number 18, thought secretly. Of course, black soul number 18 couldn't leave casually. The only time she could leave without violating the gray time Miss Yi ordered was when the person she was protecting returned home, right under the eyes of the new owner. But when is this woman going to leave? This is the 5th cup of mung bean smoothie. Ren Xiling was squatting in the ice room downstairs of King Kong's house. She was very patient. At the same time, in an empty bungalow in the suburb, the old Taoist Yang Taizi suddenly opened his eyes, frowning. Who is it? It's been more than 3 days. Did you fail again? At this moment, an old man at the corner of the house was looking at Yang Taizi, implicitly saying with dissatisfaction, You're a Taoist in this area. Yang Taizi understated, there are very few people who can find the guide crane in this area. But those who can find it at least have some secret skills. The guide crane can find the last person your disciple saw. Ghost King Tongtian, I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to avenge your disciple. Besides, I heard some rumors that it was your disciple who misused her magic to commit crimes. What she touched was the most taboo and intolerable thing in this country. She brought this upon herself. The old man suddenly stood up. His face was engraved with many tadpole-like tattoos. At first glance, it looked very scary. At this time, the tame headmaster from Nanyang snorted coldly and said in a strange Mandarin accent, No matter what he did, I'll be the one to punish him. But if you let my disciple grow old for no reason and commit suicide in despair, I can't just ignore it. You promised to help me find the murderer, so I should give you the crystal skull. If you can't do it, then there's no need to talk about it. I'll do it myself. Yang Taizi frowned. Ghost King Tongtian, I was your friend when I traveled Southeast Asia in my early years. That's why I decided to help you this time. Cultivators like us don't care about the secular world. But if you dare to commit crimes in our country, I'll be the first one to punish you. You dare to threaten me? Ghost King Tongtian's face was full of hostility. This kind of tame head sorcery could be divided into 2 extremes. The kind-hearted person had a bright heart, but if he indulged in the sorcery, he would easily have a distorted mind and act unreasonably. You're just an unorthodox cultivator. Do you dare to offend our great China? This old Taoist doesn't need your crystal skull. But if you dare to commit crimes, I'll let you see the means of Kelowna's Earth Taoist. I'll let you barbarians know that whoever offends China will be killed no matter how far away they are. Humph. Ghost King Tongtian didn't intend to show weakness, but he didn't want to offend Yang Taizi right away. 3 days. I'll wait for you for 3 more days. If your efforts are still in vain, then our cooperation ends here. Yang Taizi said indifferently, You'd better behave yourself. It's inappropriate for you to take out your disciple's corpse without permission last time. Ghost King Tongtian didn't speak, directly entering the room. Yang Taizi sat in meditation slowly. After finishing his homework, he continued to fold paper cranes with yellow paper. Boss Luo, who was planning to go home, had to stay here temporarily. The reason was that the new guests in the morning had arrived earlier than expected. Gua Yushua didn't beat around the bush, looking at the boss of the club and going straight to the point. If I use my kidney as the transaction fee to make Wenwen more excellent, how excellent can she be? From the conversation in the morning, Luoqiu knew that Guo Yushua was in the financial industry. It seemed that Guo Yushua wouldn't do a losing business. It was generally believed in the medical field that even if a healthy person with normal kidney function donated 1 kidney, as long as he paid attention to his diet, it wouldn't be a big deal. It seemed that the new customer thought it was a good deal to use an idle thing that wouldn't cause much harm to himself in exchange for a more valuable temptation. Luoqiu thought for a while and said, If you want to improve in all aspects, you'll only reach the level of mediocrity. But if it's only one side, the direction that the customer wants will also be different. Mr. Gua, this is a consensual business. It's okay if you make it clear. Guo Yushua calculated inwardly. He felt that he hadn't been so serious when he was planning his life. If he could really make his girlfriend a perfect woman, then it would be worth it. After a long time, Guo Yushua took a deep breath. First of all, I don't expect her to be able to keep up with my pace, but at least she can't be ignorant. In addition, I hope she can be ambitious and not be content with the status quo. She can have the idea of learning. It's better to have a dream. Luochio just looked at Guo Yushua silently without saying a word. Guo Yushua couldn't stand the silence and asked cautiously, "Is the transaction fee not enough? If it's not enough, I can add 2 months, no 1 month's lifespan." Boss Luo suddenly shook his head. "No, customer, the transaction fee you plan to use is enough. So, customer, are you sure you want to buy the things mentioned above?" Guo Yushua nodded his head ferociously with incomparable longing. "Look forward to your next visit." Boss Luo watched Guo Yushua leave. Guo Yushua didn't look back, nor did he stop. He thought to himself that he wouldn't come again. When walking out of the elevator, Luochio stopped and looked at the public space of the floor with confusion. But he didn't find anything, so he took out the key to open the door. Although it was convenient to directly teleport home, sometimes he would meet Ren Xiling, who came back earlier than him. After asking Yi, he learned that if an ordinary person was hypnotized too many times and implanted too many false memories, over time, they would become mentally deranged. Therefore, Boss Luo went straight downstairs when he returned home. But when he opened the door, he saw Ren Xiling standing at the door. Her face was haggard, her lips were pale, and she looked like she was about to fall. She directly fell towards Luochio. What happened? Luochio's heart tightened subconsciously. Ren Xiling raised her head with difficulty. "I had diarrhea 6 times. I can't. Take me to the hospital." "What did you do?" Ren Xiling said weakly. "I don't know if it's because I ate too much mung bean smoothie. 6 cups, is that a lot?" Yen PS1. Please don't bring up any rhythm. Be reasonable. The cleric's plot was written last month. How would I know about a certain CX idiot X Hall at that time? PS2. I don't say anything, but I'm China. PS3. Please recommend me. There's one more update tonight. Chapter 85. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, /go, /little? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. The middle of the second lane of Wenhua Street was named as such on the official map. But there was another name that was more widely known. Bar Street. This was the place where alcohol and turbidity intertwined. It was also the place where some things that couldn't be revealed under the sunlight were hidden. In the early stage of development, the plan that focused on speed made this place the most complicated structure in the entire city. Dark alleys were everywhere, just like a maze. Without an acquaintance, it was better not to go deep into the places where the neon lights couldn't illuminate, even if you knew that there might be more wonderful and stimulating things in those places. Because the woman didn't listen to her friend's advice, she now became extremely regretful and frightened. She shouldn't have followed a stranger. The excessive alcohol made her head extremely dizzy, and there was no way for her to see the appearance of the man who was violating her in the extremely dim light. Even this man might not be the one who just drank with her. She was powerless to resist and wanted to cry for help hysterically. However, the alcohol in her body made it difficult for her to do so. At this moment, the woman suddenly felt her body seemed to be much lighter, and the heavy body that pressed on her seemed to have disappeared. What followed was a blood-curdling scream. She vaguely saw a black shadow appear. It seemed that someone saved her. It seemed to be a firefighter with a gas mask. She couldn't see clearly. Her body was finally drunk under the effect of alcohol. Mo, Xiaofei frowned and looked at this scantily clad woman. Although it was her own fault for coming to such a place dressed like this, compared to her, the man who intended to do evil was even more guilty. Humph! There are so many dirty and evil people in this society. Mo, Xiaofei lifted his leg towards the man who had fainted after being knocked over by his psychokinesis and knocked against the wall. Then he dragged him out of the dark alley. These days he felt that his psychokinesis had become more and more powerful. As long as he concentrated his mind, he could even push himself up and fly in the sky. Being a teenager, after Mo Xiaofei thoroughly experienced the feeling of being a Superman, he happily used his flying ability to shuttle through the city quickly and conveniently. Of course, he didn't intend to expose himself in front of others. Even if he did, Mo Xiaofei didn't intend to expose the fact that he could use psychokinesis. Therefore, he quietly took out his father's firefighter uniform and put it on. Did it feel very low? No. Wearing his father's uniform, Mo Xiaofei could only feel a steady flow of enthusiasm. Soon after, Mo Xiaofei carried the man to one side of the gate of the police station under the cover of the night, and directly threw the man into the wall of the police station. Of course, he didn't think that the police would know what the man did if he just left the man here. Therefore, he took out his camcorder and listened to Nemo, with earplugs under his gas mask. He wanted to be the man who brought his own BGM to film the crime. Mo Xiaofei removed the SD card from the DV and put it into an envelope. The word evidence was written on the envelope. Then it was thrown into the wall of the police station. Mo Xiaofei had an indescribable pleasure in his heart at this time. But at this moment, Mo Xiaofei's joy suddenly disappeared. He frowned as he watched a young man walk out of the door. Then, the young man quickly got into a car. Mo Xiaofei didn't think that he saw wrongly. This young man was one of the people he threw into the police station before. Mo Xiaofei's eyes narrowed slightly. Then he quietly flew into the wall. With tiredness, Officer Ma could only choose to get off work after the investigation of the murder case in the garage was fruitless. This also liberated a group of police officers under him. But when he opened the car door in the parking lot, he was pushed against the car door by a huge force. Then Officer Ma felt that his backpack seemed to be pressed by something. With his strength, he couldn't break free. He twisted his neck in front of him. There seemed to be someone behind him. Who? Officer Ma was shocked and angry. Why did you let that guy go? I don't know what you're talking about. Officer Ma frowned, saying in a low voice, but it's obvious that your current behavior is against the law. Your courage is beyond my expectation. This is the police station. Humph. Mo Xiaofei snorted coldly. He pressed Officer Ma's back with one hand, but he was indeed suppressing him with his psychokinesis. Don't play dumb with me. I clearly took a picture of the guy who walked out just now. You let him go just like that. Officer Ma was stunned, saying in astonishment, the guy who kept throwing people into the police station these 2 days is you? Who the hell are you? It's none of your business who I am. You haven't answered my question. Officer Ma had a hot temper. He immediately said angrily, Are you an idiot? Don't you know there's a procedure called bail pending trial? Besides, what kind of evidence did you take? They were just talking and discussing, but they didn't do anything. I also brought the tools for the crime. F***CK. Are you out of your mind? That bag of things can only be called evidence after it's used. Officer Moss struggled hard. I don't know what kind of mentality you have, but it's obvious that you're doing something only an idiot would do. Who do you think you are? A superhero. Are you out of your mind after watching a movie? If it weren't for me, that guy would have gotten away with it. Mo Xiaofei was also furious. Do we really have to wait for him to commit a crime or even kill someone before arresting him? Officer Ma said impatiently, I said you're an idiot. You're really an idiot. I'm too lazy to talk to you. With that, Officer Ma suddenly kicked backward. Mo Xiaofei couldn't react in time and was kicked in the stomach. It was extremely painful at once. He covered his stomach and felt like retching. But before he could react, Officer Ma had seized the opportunity to grab the back of his hand and turned it around, directly pressing Mo Xiaofei to the ground. F***CK. I'm too lazy to care if you want to be a hero, But remember to do something meaningful next time. Of course, there are professionals to deal with criminals. Everything must be done according to the law. You sent him here and beat him until he's full of injuries. At best, you're just abusing the law." With that, Officer Ma was going to remove the old-fashioned gas mask on this guy's head. But at this moment, Officer Ma only felt a sudden huge force, and his hand suddenly loosened. Hearing Mo Xiaofei's angry roar, he directly pushed Officer Ma out, and the latter hit the door of the car hard. Bang! It was another violent impact. Looking at the police officer, who directly smashed the car door glass and spat out blood, Mo Xiaofei subconsciously took 2 steps back. "Who's there?" Hearing the shouts, Mo Xiaofei shuddered inwardly and fled at lightning speed. "Someone come quickly. Sir Ma is injured. Ambulance! Ambulance!" "The doctor said you have acute gastroenteritis." Ren Xiling looked at the speed of the infusion tube and said helplessly, "How long will it take?" Luocha said indifferently, "I've paid for this bed. Stay here tonight." "Good baby. Mom knows you're sensible." Boss Luo directly rolled his eyes, stood up, and said, "I'll get you some water." Speaking of which, Luocha felt that he and this hospital were fated. In less than a month, he had come here several times. Boss Luo, who was carrying a hot water bottle, suddenly slowed down when he passed by a ward. In the ward, the little boy was reading a storybook to the little girl. It was the story of Cinderella. The little girl, with a bandage on her head and a pale face, looked yearning. "Let's call it a day. I snuck out quietly, okay? And the nurse said you just woke up not long ago, so you need to rest more. Brother Jiangli, I want to be a bride when I grow up. Can I marry you?" "No." "Why?" "Because I want to be a doctor when I grow up. Just like my dad, I want to save a lot of people. Then I want to be a doctor too, and save a lot of people with you. Okay, let's make a pinky promise." "Pinky promise." Luocha didn't continue to watch, holding the water bottle and leaving quietly. Kids nowadays were really professional at abusing single people, but they didn't know whether this promise would last or not, nor did they know what their future would be like. They made a promise and smiled at each other. It was already very beautiful. Chapter 86. Genius 1, 2nd, remember love/go/Shao? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Did I do something wrong? Mo Xiaofei squatted at the lamppost downstairs of his house. Why couldn't he be convicted even though he was a bad guy? Was there a need for evidence? It was because of the need for evidence that so many evildoers got away with it. Did things according to the rules and regulations? It was ridiculous that these rules and regulations could only take effect after a tragedy happened. No matter what happened, these policemen would appear at the end. Mo Xiaofei suddenly felt a tingling sensation in his head, but it was just a flash. He just felt that it was a headache and didn't think too much about it. Mo Xiaofei took a deep breath, pulling himself together and standing up. He suddenly soared into the sky, overlooking the city that had begun to dim in the night. At this time, the number of policemen would only decrease, but the ugliness of the city would appear more. All of a sudden, Mo Xiaofei plunged into the huge, dimly lit city. Since those who should protect the city and the residents under the system have many restrictions, then let me do it! Overnight, Mo Xiaofei walked crazily in the city like a ghost. It was also during this night that the numerous crimes that should have happened did not happen in the end. There were thieves who intended to steal, men who deliberately got their wives drunk with bad intentions, husbands who drank too much and abused their wives at home, students who destroyed public property for fun and excitement, and many more. When they woke up, they were horrified to find that they had come to a dark place. Love, go, Shao, say, W, Chu, their hands were hung up with iron chains. This seemed to be an abandoned factory. They looked at each other, who did not know each other but had the same experience. They kept shaking their bodies, trying to struggle out of this terrible situation. At this time, a figure came out of the dark with a flame water lamp. All of a sudden, the light pierced their eyes. Who are you? Let me go. Let me go. Why did you bring me here? I tell you, you'd better let me go. Bastard. Mo Xiaofei looked indifferently at these people who kept yelling. He placed the flame water lantern on the ground and walked in front of these people. Everyone looked at this strange person. He was wearing an old-fashioned firefighter's uniform and even a gas mask. They couldn't see his face at all. Right at this moment, the thick rope in the strange man's hand suddenly whipped down on one of the people. This kind of thick and long rope, when swung, would produce more force, ruthlessly lashing at the skin like a whip. Screams rang out. Mo Xiaofei suddenly spread his hands. Welcome to the prison I've customized for you. I will punish you for your evil deeds until you clearly recognize your sins and feel ashamed. Then serve here properly. The thick and long rope was pulled down again. This time it was another one. Luoqiu felt something scratch his face, so he opened his eyes. Ren Xiling was leaning on the pillow and looking at him, full of energy. It's impolite to disturb others' rest. Miraculously, Luoqiu didn't feel any physical discomfort after sleeping on the folding chair for most of the night. Because it's too cute, I can't help it. Ren Xiling smiled. Little Luoqiu, if your girlfriend is sick and you accompany her for a night like this, I'm sure she'll like it very much. You can push her as you like. Just because they were close in age, she could speak without thinking? Luoqiu didn't intend to continue the conversation with this woman whose moral integrity had been fed to the dogs. He stood up and put the stool back to its original position, saying indifferently, if there's nothing else, you can leave the hospital. Don't occupy a bed. Ren Xiling stretched and said, since you're so sensible, I'll listen to you this time. Boss Luo, who didn't understand who was taking care of whom, didn't know where to start complaining. He just put the pair of shoes that Ren Xiling put aside in front of her. Are you willing to leave or not? TSK. Let's finish the ramen later. Go. In the corridor, Ren Xiling touched her stomach. It's empty. I need to find something to fill it up properly. Boss Luo, who didn't know where to start complaining, put an end to her request with one sentence. Well, next time you crawl to the hospital yourself, I won't send you. F***CK. Are you trying to starve me to death while waiting for Qingming? Boss Luo could almost imagine this woman's unreasonable next, but he was surprised to see Ren Xiling stop. He looked in the direction of her gaze. Isn't that old Ma's wife? What? Old Ma was killed by someone? And in the parking lot of the police station? Looking at Officer Ma's wife, Qin Jing, who looked haggard, it was obvious that she didn't have a good rest last night. Ren Xiling and Luoqiu looked at each other and frowned. Qin Jing said, the doctor said that his internal organs were injured, but his bones are fine. He fainted for a night in pain and hasn't woken up yet. Ren Xiling asked directly, what did they say? Who did it? Is it an enemy? Qin Jing shook her head and said, Old Ma didn't say clearly. He's busy with treatment. Ren Xiling touched her chin and said, it's strange. And in the parking lot of the police station, who is so bold? Luoqiu, what do you think? He's starting to wake up, call the nurse. Luoqiu, who had been looking at Officer Ma lying on the bed, suddenly said. After a while, everyone gathered around Officer Ma's bed again. After Officer Ma woke up, he was very surprised that Ren Xiling and Luoqiu were also here. He was touched. No, I had diarrhea last night, so I came to the hospital. Officer Ma coughed twice and said, my colleagues will come to take a statement later. You can go back first. Luoqiu suddenly asked, Uncle Ma, who attacked you? Officer Ma suddenly shook his head and said, it was too dark. I didn't see clearly. Luoqiu nodded. He knew that Uncle Ma was actually lying. Uncle Ma, who was known as a sharpshooter, actually had good eyesight. But since he didn't speak, there was probably something that was hard to say. When you're better, we'll come to see you again. Luoqiu finally said, purchase successful. This information deducts 88 minutes and 30 seconds of lifespan. The remaining lifespan is 973 days, 9 hours, 3 hours, 37 minutes, and 45 seconds. So, how was the value of purchasing information converted? Sitting in the club lobby, what Luocio didn't expect was that the person who injured Uncle Ma this time was Mo Xiaofei, who got psychokinesis from the club at the cost of his soul not long ago. If Uncle Ma didn't know Mo Xiaofei, why did he hide this matter? Yen PS1. Sorry for the late update, because Saturday is Whitestone's family day. PS2. Whitestone is from a single-parent family, so he will accompany his mother to walk around on Saturday or Sunday. PS3. Shameless to ask for votes. Chapter 87. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Gone. During the break between classes, the girls were sharing their little secrets with each other. Although the voice was not loud, it could still be heard if one listened carefully. It's been 2 days. His phone and wallet are still there, but he's gone. The thin female student whispered, "Maybe he's drinking somewhere." The good classmate expressed her understanding and comfort. "Besides, isn't it good? Your dad often beats and scolds you and auntie when he's drunk." The skinny girl sighed, as if she didn't want to discuss this matter any further. Suddenly, a sound came from the seat next to her. It was another female student, the language class representative Luo Xiao. She looked at the person whom she had woken up, the guy who had been sleeping on his stomach from the beginning to the end of the class. "Mo Xiaofei, you haven't handed in your essay." Mo Xiaofei rubbed his eyes and was obviously stunned for a moment. He looked at the Chinese class representative and asked, "Can it be a little later?" He had completely forgotten about this matter. "You have to hand it in before school ends at the latest." "Got it." Mo Xiaofei looked away and said. Luo Xiao nodded and walked away, but the fragrance of a girl remained. Mo Xiaofei stared at her back in a daze. He didn't know why, but he always felt that he couldn't see her appearance clearly. It wasn't that he couldn't see her or didn't know what she looked like. It was just that there was always a kind of hazy feeling. Love, go, little, say, W. Chu, this girl was not particularly beautiful, but she was very strong. He used to be very timid. The kind of nature that he didn't have was more attractive to him than the opposite sex. "Can I see you clearly now?" Mo Xiaofei muttered to himself, but he quickly shook his head. He had more important things to do now. Taking a deep breath, Mo Xiaofei continued to sleep. If he didn't sleep now, he would only be tired at night. Maybe it was because he used the psychokinesis too often. Mo Xiaofei always felt very sleepy. When he was about to fall asleep, Mo Xiaofei glanced at the thin girl. "Don't worry about it. Once that guy is done repenting and knows his mistake, he will return to your side." His gaze sank into the darkness where his eyes were closed. In the darkness, there was a slight smell of blood mixed with the acid of sweat, as well as the rusty smell of corroding iron. In this deserted, abandoned factory, the number of people who were hung up with iron chains had increased from the initial few to the current 20 to 30. In just 2 short days, Yi looked at the men and women who were hung up and chuckled. Finally, she walked to Luocio's side. He was flipping through a brand new soft leather notebook. On the pages, he wrote about the people who were hung up, why they needed to be imprisoned, and what kind of punishment they should receive. A hit-and-run young master, a husband who likes domestic violence. Luocio suddenly closed the soft leather notebook and put it back to its original place. They are all people who can be free and unfettered outside the law. Yi picked up the soft leather notebook. Unlike Luocio, who carefully read page by page, she just flipped through the pages quickly. It's also some places that are far away. It seems that Mo Xiaofei is really hardworking. But I don't know how long he can hold on. Luocio was now looking at those people who finally had a chance to breathe after being tortured. Even if they were hung up like this, they could still fall asleep without eating for 2 days. Do you want to rescue these people? Yi suddenly said, if they disappear, Mo Xiaofei will only use his ability more. Besides, they need to be rescued now. Miss Maid was hinting to the boss that there was a ready-made business here. However, the club leader, who had other plans in mind, shook his head. Luochio said indifferently, as more and more people go missing, the police will pay more attention to this place. Sooner or later, they will find this place. Mo Xiaofei didn't mean to kill these people. It's not a bad thing to let them suffer before being rescued. Yi suddenly asked, Master, since Mo Xiaofei hurt Officer Ma, don't you want to teach him a lesson? Luochio looked at her, he argued with Uncle Ma, because the criminals could be bailed out easily. Because of this, Uncle Ma finally concealed this matter. Since he made the decision to hide it, then we should respect his decision. Luochio finally looked at these criminals who finally fell asleep. He thinks that such young people are just a little extreme, but they are not bad in nature. The crime of assaulting the police is too serious. Luochio shook his head dully, suddenly asking, by the way, it has been 3 days since Yang Taizi came here last time, right? Yi nodded. Luochio suddenly said, I want to go to the Barren Mountain last time to try that revolver. Go and prepare some bullets for me. Miss Maid nodded her head again. She knew that her new master didn't do it purely out of interest. Black Soul number 18 was just about to flatten this annoying paper crane and complete the achievement of 12 kills. But he suddenly stopped. The 12th paper crane was suddenly enveloped by an indifferent, dusky ball of light. Then it flew out and landed in the palm of a fair and delicate hand. Miss Yi, Black Soul number 18, didn't dare to neglect her. He came to Miss Servant Girl, who appeared here silently at the fastest speed. Looking at the struggling paper crane in her palm, Yi seemed to sense a familiar smell. This is the 12th one. It seems that the guy hiding in the dark is really unwilling to give up. Black Soul, no. 18 said, but I really can't find out the origin of this paper crane. Yi said indifferently, you don't need to care about what happens next. You just need to protect this young lady. Yi glanced into the ice room, looking at sub-editor Ren, who was sitting by the window, but didn't order mung bean smoothie this time. I know. Black Soul number 18 said respectfully, and then said hesitantly, Miss Yi, shouldn't we report this to the new owner? Yi said indifferently, if the master needs to worry about such a small thing, then what's the point of us servants? Feeling the great pressure from the master in the club, Black Soul number 18 quickly lowered his head. It's dinner time. Yi said suddenly, I'm going back to prepare dinner for the master. You continue your work here. Yes, saying this, Yi clenched her palm, and the paper crane in her palm turned into a cloud of flying ash instantly. The royal blue eyes were overlooking the direction of a suburb of the city, and a touching sneer appeared on Miss Maid's face. In the suburb, Yang Taizi suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. Not good. Yen P.S. There's another update at 12 o'clock. Chapter 88. A Genius Remembers. Love in 1 second. Saynet, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Yang Taizi was regulating his breath. Love go blittle, say W. Chew several hours later. Yang Taizi finished regulating his breath and waited for Ghost King Tongtian to come back. These 2 days, this guy always went to the nearby barren hills. He could smell the stench of the corpse on Ghost King Tongtian's body growing stronger and stronger. You seem to be injured. Ghost King Tongtian looked at Yang Taizi's pale face and frowned. But Yang Taizi said in a low voice without hesitation, Ghost King, let's call off this cooperation. I don't know who your disciple provoked, but I can tell you seriously that he's someone we can't mess with even if we join hands. Ghost King Tongtian was surprised. You fought? Did that guy hurt you? Yang Taizi told him the truth, before and after. He would only destroy my guiding crane, but this time he gave me a direct warning. I won't do business with you anymore. Ghost King Tongtian got angry. You cowardly Taoist. Where's your arrogance when you threaten me? You think you can sink just because your opponent is not easy to provoke? Yang Taizi snorted coldly. The cooperation between you and me was originally consensual. You crossed the border. I just don't want you to do whatever you want here, so I want to help you. I don't deny that I have my own selfish motives, but I know the opponent is stronger than you, and your disciple got what he deserved. You should know when to back off. I don't care. Ghost King Tongtian got angry. I'll get my revenge. If you're scared, you can go back to your temple. I don't have to rely on you. Yang Taizi snorted. You don't know what's good for you. Do you really think I don't know you started to use your disciple's corpse to refine the evil zombie skill? If you're willing to take it back to your territory, it's fine. But it seems you don't want to be obedient. Stinky Taoist, are you going to stop me? I just want you to turn back. That's all. You shouldn't have such thoughts. You think I'm afraid of you? Ghost King Tongtian's body suddenly emitted a strange green light, setting off the tattoos on his face. He really looked like an evil ghost. At this moment, Yang Taizi took a deep breath, with his legs slightly apart and his hands holding a yellow talisman. His Taoist robe fluttered without wind, with a wisp of purple air lingering between his eyebrows. The smell of gunpowder between the two of them was getting thicker and thicker. Suddenly, the surroundings became gloomy and cold. A cluster of black flames was born. It was as if the fuse of gunpowder had been ignited. It spread rapidly and turned into a circle of black flames. Yang Taizi and Ghost King Tongtian had a bad feeling at the same time. At this moment, they had no time to care about each other and subconsciously rushed out of the fire ring. Unexpectedly, as soon as his body approached, the black flame shot out as if it had a mind of its own. Yang Taizi and Ghost King Tongtian were both hit by the weird black flame. Speaking of which, it was terrifying. When this black flame burned on their clothes, it made the two of them feel extremely terrified at the same time. They felt a piercing pain in their spirits, as if their spirits were being pierced by steel needles, and also as if they were being burned by a raging fire. It was not the physical pain, but the spiritual pain, which was more important in the life soul. The two of them screamed miserably, hurriedly tearing off the clothes attached by the black flame. At this moment, a female voice came from all directions. Only one of you two can walk out of here. I don't care who you are. Yang Taizi's face changed dramatically. This voice wasn't it that horrible woman in the auction venue, that dangerous place? The death of Ghost King Tongtian's apprentice was related to that place. No wonder. She could silently break his spell 12 times in a row. Wait, I don't know. Or, Yang Taizi didn't even have time to call himself a poor Taoist. However, before he finished his words, he was interrupted. These black flames will shrink. You don't have much time. The circle of black flames was shrinking, or rather, they were closing up rapidly. These black flames looked like they had surrounded the city in a circle. However, if one wanted to escape, they would immediately shoot out in different directions. It was extremely vicious. Yang Taizi didn't have time to explain, because Ghost King Tongtian had planned to take the initiative, to take his life. I shouldn't have agreed to Ghost King Tongtian's request out of greed. Forget it, forget it. This old Taoist is not willing to die here and cut off the path to immortality. Yang Taizi muttered. His left hand formed the 3 pure fingers, and his right hand held the yellow talisman upright. A purple light flashed between his eyebrows. The two of them fought with all their strength in the circle of black flames, which was very dangerous. However, outside the circle of fire, the club servant girl was carefully reading a Chinese cookbook. Jade tremella, 15, 20 grams dry tremella, 120-150 grams minced chicken. Not knowing how long had passed, suddenly a miserable howl came. Then the circle of fire automatically revealed a gap. Yang Taizi's robe was torn apart by wild beasts, with dozens of large and small wounds on his body. He hobbled out with a broken peach, with sword in his hand. Ghost King Tongtian has been killed. I didn't know his disciple had offended your club. If I offended you, please forgive me, Yang Taizi said while pinching his weak mouth. However, this indifferent woman only paid more attention to the book in her hand, an unknown book. Yang Taizi hesitated for a while and said, I won't say more about today's matter. Ghost King Tongtian was an unorthodox cultivator who didn't have a master, and no one will find trouble with your club in the future. Phoenix lying on its nest, 10 fish maw, jade orchid slices? Yu Yi blinked, suddenly looking at Yang Taizi, and asked, Little Taoist, what's jade orchid slices? He said a lot, but she didn't listen at all. She was reading a cookbook. Yang Taizi was also a modern Taoist who knew how to use mobile phones and chat groups. At this moment, his heart was filled with curses, but he had to answer the question. It should be winter bamboo shoots or other dried products. Really? Yu Yi nodded, quietly disappearing in front of Yang Taizi. The old Taoist, Yang Taizi, who was just called a little Taoist, was now covered in cold sweat. He sat down on the ground as if he was about to collapse, with his back drenched in cold sweat. What is this woman's cultivation? It's so terrifying. But he still couldn't figure out his opponent's intention. The black flames were gradually extinguished. After resting for a while, Yang Taizi frowned and got up, walking back to Ghost King Tongtian's corpse, using the broken peach with sword in his hand to pick it up a few times. Then he said in a down-to-earth tone, It didn't drop any equipment. Where is the crystal skull hidden? How annoying. 3 unconscious people were tied up on the ground. Beside them was student Mo Xiaofei. Mo Xiaofei was chewing bread and drinking yogurt, looking down from the rooftop of the building. Not only the psychokinesis, but he also found that his hearing and eyesight had become very powerful. Suddenly, he heard a voice asking for help. It was a very common and easy thing to happen, robbery. Ignoring the unfinished bread, Mo Xiaofei began to scan the structure of this place. Then he directly jumped off the roof of the 20-story building and slid his body into the box of the low building below like a startled swan. A middle-aged man holding a black satchel was running into a complicated alley, intending to avoid the robber who chased him all the way. At this time his foot seemed to have tripped over something, directly falling to the ground. The satchel in his hand also rolled to the side and was picked up by someone, a guy wearing a strange fire uniform which was very loose and didn't fit him, and a gas mask. You have hands and feet, but don't want to make progress. Do you only know how to rob? And Mo Xiaofei looked at this frightened, middle-aged man with disdain. That man suddenly gritted his teeth, abruptly getting up and rushing over. Give it back to me! Humph, unrepentant. And Mo Xiaofei snorted coldly and waved his hand. Before the man rushed over, his body had already flown out and fell directly into the pile of rubbish. Shaking his head, Mo Xiaofei walked to the front of this man, looking at the middle-aged man who was glaring at him. Feeling the hatred in his eyes, Mo Xiaofei said indifferently, You need to repent. He lifted the man up, but found that the man didn't resist, but suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Mo Xiaofei gave a start, subconsciously looking at the pile of rubbish, a pile of broken glass. There were several beer bottles here. That man fell down, crushing some, and at the same time, the broken glass bottles were inserted into his back. The clothes on his back had been dyed red with blood. Mo Xiaofei quivered, shaking his hand, and that man fell to the ground. He subconsciously stepped back and leaned against the wall. At this moment, that man directly went over with his eyes closed. Dead? Suddenly, Where is he? Come out. Damn guy, dare to rob my stuff. Come out. The owner of the item had found him. Mo Xiaofei panicked, rushing up to the sky. He didn't care whether he was seen or not. He just wanted to escape. Yen 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 PS1. As the title, this is Miss Servant Girl's special badge. PS2, it's 12 o'clock. Please recommend me. Chapter 89. Genius 1, second, remember love, /go, /little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. After escaping, he hid on the rooftop of a nearby building, trembling for no reason. He recalled what happened in the garage not long ago, as if it was right in front of him. Blood pool, frightened eyes, and miserable screams. Mo Xiaofei subconsciously covered his forehead, trying to calm down and convince himself, it's your fault. It's your fault. Why did you resist? It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. Mo Xiaofei didn't know how much time had passed, but he began to feel the pain in his head was gone. He stood up and took a deep breath. Once again, he glided down between the buildings in the night. He returned to the alley. The owner called the police and the ambulance. Some onlookers watched the medical staff send the man into the ambulance with a stretcher. To be honest, officer, I really don't know. When I caught up with him, this guy was lying on the ground, covered with blood. I was the one who was robbed. Many people saw it. If you don't believe me, you can ask the people who sell their wares nearby. At this time, Mo Xiaofei was also among the onlookers. They discussed it like this. That's terrible. Such a big glass body was inserted, and the ground was covered with blood. Wicked people suffer a lot. Mo Xiaofei didn't continue to watch. Wicked people suffer a lot. It's your fault. But for some reason, Mo Xiaofei was in a bad mood tonight. After he hurriedly brought the few people he had caught to the abandoned factory, he didn't pay any attention to them. All he wanted to do was to rush home. Yes, it's your fault. As usual, Mo Xiaofei hid a set of clothes and tools downstairs, and then flew to the window of his room along the wall. It was not high, only the third floor. The window was opened. Mo Xiaofei gave a start. He remembered that he should have closed the window when he left. Mo Xiaofei frowned, stepping over the window frame, opened the curtain and landed on the ground. When he was about to turn on the desk lamp, the incandescent light was turned on. Mo Xiaofei gave a start. At this moment, he saw his father, Mo Hongqi, in the room. He turned on the light. He saw himself coming in through the window. Because there was still a curtain between them, perhaps they didn't see his flying appearance. Instead, they just thought that he had crawled in. But even so, it made Mo Xiaofei feel uneasy. He didn't know how to explain this to his father. She also subconsciously hid the backpack with a set of tools behind her back. Dad, are you hungry? It's so late. Unexpectedly, Mo Hongqi suddenly said, I just made some food. Let's eat together. Mo Xiaofei nodded subconsciously. The lights in her father's studio were still on. Maybe he was rushing to finish the sculpture for the client? The father and son sat at the table. Because of Mo Hongqi's inconvenience, the food they ate was quite simple. It was just some chopped green onion noodles with some sauce. You didn't close the window properly at night, and a stray cat ran in from who knows where. Mo Hongqi ate the noodles and said softly, I called you a few times, but there was no response. Mo Xiaofei lowered his head, saying, That stray cat! Maybe it was frightened when it went in, so it jumped out. Mo Hongqi looked at Mo Xiaofei with a gentle smile. A father always had a faint majesty to his son. Mo Xiaofei didn't dare to look at his father, saying uneasily that I'm fine. I didn't do anything. Mo Xiaofei felt that such a tone had no persuasive power. He didn't know how to confess to his father. Hurry up and eat. Then tidy up and go to bed. Don't wake up your mother. Mo Hongqi said softly, You have to go to school tomorrow. Don't waste your energy. Mo Xiaofei didn't know why his nose twitched, blurting out, Dad, actually, unexpectedly, Mo Hongqi's father shook his head at this moment, saying suddenly, Today the school teacher called, saying that it's not safe recently and asked the parents to take care of the children. I guess there should be a murder case 2 days ago. It's reported that several students were killed. They should be from your school. Mo Hongqi's father glanced at his son, noticing that his eyes seemed to shrink. You've been very sensible since childhood. If there's something you can't solve, you can discuss it with me or your mother. As a man, you don't have to shoulder everything by yourself. And no matter what you do, pay attention to safety. I won't sneak out again. And Mo Xiaofei lowered his head. And Mo Hongqi said softly, hurry up and eat. And Mo Xiaofei nodded. After eating, he went back to the room after tidying up. Lying on the bed, he couldn't fall asleep. Meow Boss Luo, who wasn't from the cat alien party, looked at the black stray cat that was acting cute at his feet. He squatted down and stretched out his hand to tease its neck. Then he took out a small package of milk biscuits, taking one out and putting it on the ground. He stroked the kitten's hair, looking at the room that was used as a studio with a faint light on, saying nothing. How would Mo Xiaofei choose the next path? The club's boss actually had a feeling of déjà vu, as if he had suddenly obtained a magical power. Different people with the same experience. What would they choose? Let's wait and see. Luocho sprinkled another biscuit, looking at the kitten's gnawing appearance, suddenly saying softly, there is a bigger problem ahead. Standing up, Boss Luo finally said to the kitten, find an owner, because you don't know when an accident will happen to you. Taking a deep breath, Mo Xiaofei walked into the hospital. It should be this hospital, the man who was sent here last night. Robbery wasn't supposed to be a deadly crime. Mo Xiaofei didn't think that he would end up like this at the beginning. He comforted himself, but his mind was restless. So, he came here hesitantly when school was over at noon. The one last night should be in the ICU. Who are you to him? Facing the nurse's inquiry, Mo Xiaofei suddenly said, you dropped something. The nurse at the front desk gave a start, looking down subconsciously. The cup on the counter suddenly fell to the ground and broke. The nurse screamed. When she came back to her senses, Mo Xiaofei had already disappeared. In the corridor, two nurses passed by with a cart, talking about the matter of arriving at the ward. It's so miserable. Mother was waiting for the operation to save her life, but when she turned around, even father was lying on the ground. Alas, it seems that they couldn't raise the money for the operation, so they took the risk to rob. Unexpectedly, this little girl is too strong. Obviously, she was so uneasy. Mo Xiaofei's body trembled slightly, looking toward the ward subconsciously. For the first time, he clearly saw the hazy figure that he couldn't see clearly. For the first time, he couldn't see the strength of the past from her. Looking at the pale girl who was sitting beside the sickbed with red eyes but didn't shed tears, Mo Xiaofei stepped back. He knocked against the chair in the corridor, sitting down weakly. He felt his body trembling violently, and at the same time he seemed to have difficulty breathing. His body seemed to be hollowed out. Luo Ji, why is it you? Mo Xiaofei suddenly grasped his hair. He saw the bright red in front of his eyes, as if he had fallen into a whirlpool. The garage, the abandoned factory, the alley last night, and those prisoners who were hung in the prison. He lowered his head, seeing a drop of blood dripping on the floor. One drop after another. That was the blood from his nose. Mo Xiaofei touched it in a panic, wiping it. A pair of blood-stained hands appeared. Wicked people suffer a lot. It's your fault. What a miserable little girl. Mother is still waiting for help. Please, let me go. Let me go. I dare not. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. What a miserable little girl. Wicked people suffer a lot. It's your fault. What a miserable little girl. Wicked people suffer a lot. It's your fault. Wicked people suffer a lot. It's your fault. What a miserable little girl. He felt unprecedented coldness, confusion, and fear. Yen, PS1. Today, someone complained that I'm a maniac who tortures the supporting roles, saying I'm going to send a blade, and so on. PS2. Of course, I know it's a joke, probably. PS3. Classmate Mo Xiaofei. I hope he can get a fair result. Of course. It's just what I think in my heart. It's hard to get everyone's opinion. PS4. I'm writing like walking on thin ice, PS5. So I'm still shamelessly asking for a recommendation. Chapter 90. A genius remembers love in 1 second / small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Chin Chiu looked at those students who were drawing attentively, revealing a satisfied smile. This was a self-managed art studio. There was a space for teaching people to draw, as well as a place for visiting students or her own graffiti for sale. Of course, if a student's work was sold, she would only charge a small consignment fee. She walked up to a man. The man had been here for some time, and he was looking at a not-for-sale item that had just been put there recently. "Sir, do you like this painting very much?" "You are. I'm the owner of this place. You can say that I'm a painting teacher." Chin Chiu gave out her handmade business card. The man glanced at it and nodded. Then he asked curiously, "Why is there a painting here that doesn't match, although it's quite pretty?" Chin Chiu said with a smile, "This was left behind by a guest. I'm waiting for the day he comes back and takes it back." But he didn't leave any contact information that day. The man nodded casually and suddenly said, "My girlfriend wants to learn painting recently." Chin Chiu said, "I see. Why don't you ask your girlfriend to come here and have a look?" The art studio needed to be managed, so if there was a source of students, they wouldn't miss it. The man shook his head and said, "She's been a little busy recently, so she might not have the time. Why don't you introduce me to some beginners' drawing tools?" Chin Chiu nodded as she quickly found some drawing tools, sketchbooks, and books for beginners. He used the POS machine to swipe the payment. After the man paid, he carried the things out of the studio and did not take the receipt. Chin Chiu glanced at the signature on the receipt and felt that this man was not bad. Gua Yushua. Love, go, little, say, Netuku. At noon, Luochio was dragged to the hospital by Ren Xiling to visit Officer Ma. Well, it should be read as visiting a patient and writing a set of materials. "Old Ma, did you really not see who knocked you out that night? You deserve the title of the top sharpshooter. I believe in your professionalism." Sub-editor Rin was not stingy with her praise. Don't always try to create big news. Although he couldn't get out of bed, Officer Ma, who had recovered a lot of energy, said with a sullen face, "If you have so much free time to look for gossip, why don't you use your pen, criticize society, and satirize the country? You can use your sarcasm to criticize the current government. F***CK. My son is still here." Sub-editor Rin glared at her. "Mind your words. You also know that little Luo Chiao is also here." Officer Ma said unhappily, "Then please learn from your son. At least she knows how to peel an apple for a patient like me. What about you? Are you here to visit a patient or to interrogate a criminal?" Luochio, Boss Luo, was focused on peeling an apple and watching quietly. Speaking of which, could he not call him little? Ren Xiling frowned. Suddenly the phone rang. "I need to answer the phone." As she said, she grabbed the apple that had just been peeled from Luochio's hand and ran out of the ward while biting it. "Hello, boss." Officer Ma sighed, looking at Luochio, who was still holding a fruit knife with a confused look, and said pitifully, "I don't know who is taking care of who." "It's nothing." Luochio just took another apple, holding it between his thumb and forefinger, gently turning it. Officer Ma suddenly said, "Luochio, aren't you curious?" The speed of turning the apple didn't change. Luochio said softly, "I think everyone has his own decision. No matter what it is, I also respect your decision." Officer Ma suddenly asked, "Luochio, if you meet a person, you can see that his nature is good, but he does things a bit extreme. So he made some mistakes. Will you kill these mistakes or give him a chance to change?" Luochio shook his head and said, "At my age, I can't say that I can answer your doubts, but I think the opportunity should be given to oneself." Officer Ma was stunned. This seemed to be a very simple truth. It seemed that he was the only one who fell into it. At this time, Luochio cut the peeled apple into 8 equal pieces and sent it to Officer Ma. "I'm going to wash my hands." Officer Ma smiled, feeling that this child was more and more like his brother Luo, who was no longer around. Eating the delicately cut apple, Officer Ma mutters, "But Brother Luo is not so delicate. Did he give birth to the wrong child?" Officer Ma, who was eating the apple, looked at Ren Xiling, who intended to persevere in interrogating him after the phone call. He suddenly said, "Sister-in-law, did you get the news that more people were reported missing these 2 days?" Ren Xiling frowned and nodded. "Old Ma, do you really know something?" Officer Ma said seriously, "Do you still remember the murder case in the garage a few days ago?" Ren Xiling sat down, taking out a small notebook and a ballpoint pen. She lowered her head, preparing to write. But seeing Officer Ma staring at her without speaking, Sub-Editor Rin smiled awkwardly. "It's a professional habit, hee-hee. Be serious." Officer Ma was instantly infuriated. He couldn't stop coughing as his injuries were aggravated. Ren Xiling stuck out her tongue, but heard Officer Ma gasping, "I may have let a thug go. Indeed, ordinary people don't have such great strength." Ren Xiling frowned. "Even if there is, there won't be many of them at the same time. So it's not impossible that you suspect the person who injured you is the same person as the one in the garage. Moreover, if that weirdo has the behavior of throwing criminals to the police station, it proves that he is a person with a strong sense of justice. The man who died in the garage seems to be a gangster." Officer Ma shook his head. "It's just a possibility, but I can't say anything without evidence. But I've learned from my colleagues that there are all kinds of people who have been reported missing these days, but some of them have criminal records." Ren Xiling said seriously, "Old Ma, if we assume that the murderer, the one who injured you, and even the disappearance of these people are all done by the same person, then what is he going to do by capturing them?" Officer Ma frowned and thought for a while with an ugly face. Looking at Officer Ma, Ren Xiling seemed to think of a possibility. She took a deep breath and said, "That guy may be possessed by the devil." Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. It was a man in his 30s, dressed in a suit, with a capable and experienced aura. Ren Xiling and Officer Ma looked at the man at the same time, and then showed a surprised expression. The man smiled. "Long time no see, Old Ma." "Long time no see, sister-in-law." "Yi Yan," Ren Xiling exclaimed, "when did you come back? Didn't you go to France for several years?" "I have something to do, so I came back." The man named Yi Yan came in. "I heard that Old Ma was injured, so I came directly after getting off the plane." Looking at Yi Yan, who was still holding a suitcase, Ren Xiling's eyes brightened, squinted, and smiled. "Little Yi, I heard that you participated in several operations in the past 2 years and broke several big cases. Do you have any important tasks this time?" Yi Yan suddenly stepped back, avoiding Ren Xiling, who was approaching. "Little sister-in-law, you should know that my side is much more strict than Old Ma's. Haven't you changed your bad habits in the past 2 years?" TSK. However, Sub-Editor Rin was also a shrewd person. She knew that this man's sudden appearance was only a part of the visit, and there might be something more important. "I'm going to the toilet. When you come back, tell me all about the big cases you solved." After Ren Xiling left sensibly, Yi Yan sat down and chatted with Officer Ma for a while. Officer Ma said, "It's not a vacation, right?" Yi Yan said, "It's still the last case about Mr. Son." When Luocha was walking in the corridor, a person suddenly rushed out from the corner and bumped into him in a panic. There was no injury, but both of them were slightly separated. He looked at the person who bumped into him, and there were some blood stains on his face that hadn't been wiped off. It was Mo Xiaofei. Yen PS1. Thank you to the big shots who donated and voted for me. Chapter 91. Genius remembers love in 1 second. /small. Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Green hills, clear water, chirping birds, and fragrant flowers. This place far away from the hustle and bustle was the most beautiful. The little butterfly monster suddenly became homeless and lost her direction. After the boss of the bun shop passed away peacefully, the little butterfly monster Luo Dance began to miss her mother and the friends she had met in the mountain. After the successful immortalization, she didn't have time to go back to the mountain because she intended to feel the new life. Well, the nectar here is the most delicious. The little butterfly monster, who had become very satisfied as long as she could have the delicious nectar, was now lying on the grassland covered with wild chrysanthemums. She didn't wear shoes. Her feet were as smooth as jade, as if polished by running water for thousands of years. She felt the grass swaying in the wind and tickling her. The little butterfly monster was in a good mood. At this time, an ordinary butterfly flew past Luo Dance in a hurry. At this moment, Luo Dance felt a creepy aura coming from the ravine. She couldn't help but sit up. In the ravine, the smell of blood was getting thicker. There are many trees nearby, so there was no sunshine all day, so it was naturally cool. But at this time, Luo Dance vaguely heard a faint scream. When she cautiously approached, she could even smell a rotten smell. It was like the smell of a corpse. Pushing aside the branches, the little butterfly monster was suddenly startled. In front of her, there was something like a human. The reason why it looked like a human was that it had eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and limbs. However, its body was badly mutilated, as if it had been bitten by something. He could even see the disgusting green mucus coming out of the body of this thing, in a subtle way. When it was discovered, it was grabbing a wild dog and biting it. Similarly, it was bitten to the point of being badly mutilated. Luo Dance was very frightened, instinctively stepping back and stepping on the dry branches on the ground. That thing suddenly raised its head, and in its dry and sunken eye sockets, its two eyeballs were like ghost lights emitting green light. It suddenly swooped over. Luo Dance instinctively felt fear. She opened her huge and gorgeous butterfly wings and fled far away. She only had time to see a strange, crystal skull embedded in the chest of this thing. This thing was like the walking dead that Grandpa Tree Demon had mentioned, or something like a zombie or a living dead. Since when was there such a thing on the mountain? The little butterfly didn't know what to do. Emo Xiaofei was absent-minded for a moment. He didn't want to stay here any longer. He just wanted to find a place where no one was around. It seemed that it was purely an accident that he met someone. However, at this moment, his heart suddenly jumped. Vaguely, he felt an indescribable uneasiness from this person who was a few years older than him. It was that feeling from that place. It's you! Emo Xiaofei took 2 steps back, subconsciously. Luocho frowned slightly at Emo Xiaofei's sudden change in reaction. Could he tell by feeling alone? It seemed that there were many wonderful things about the development of the human brain. Something like the sixth sense. Luocho didn't expect to meet Emo Xiaofei again in this way. When he was about to say something, Emo Xiaofei's face suddenly changed, saying, "It's you." The meaning of "it's you" was obviously different. It's you. It's you who arranged all this. It's you who asked me to personally kill Luo Xie's father. It's you. Emo Xiaofei looked nervous rather than nervous. It was better to say that he became nervous. Luocho looked at him carefully and wanted to say something, but he had lost the intention to speak. Emo Xiaofei seemed to be suddenly enlightened at this moment. I understand. I completely understand. It's you. You're the one who secretly manipulated all this. You want to make me suffer and feel guilty. You're really devils. You really like to play with souls. So, how did he come to such a conclusion? Was it just because he was dragged to the hospital and coincidentally bumped into her? Emo Xiaofei suddenly snorted coldly. In an instant, he seemed to have lost his previous confusion and pain. He seemed to have gained an unlimited amount of motivation. He seemed to have jumped out of the whirlpool of self-blame in an instant. He also seemed to have found the definition in his heart again. It's just an accident. Even an accident arranged by you. I didn't do anything wrong. I won't give in, I won't. I won't bow down to you. In the future, I'll do better. I'll never let you find any chance to take advantage of me. You're the source of the biggest evil. His eyes were different. Luocio felt it carefully. This guest seemed to have imagined a huge conspiracy in a short moment. But at the same time, along with the sharp eyes, there was an invading force that broke out from Mo Xiaofei. Feeling that his body was in a state that could be overturned at any time, Luocio quickly looked around. At the same time, the psychokinesis that broke out from Mo Xiaofei's body suddenly soared several times. In the air, an invisible shock wave immediately spread out like an explosion. Bang! The glass in the corridor was shattered. Some patients, family members, and nurses in the front and back corridor were shocked and fainted. The club boss, who should have been the first to bear the brunt of the impact, was standing in the same place unscathed. Feeling Mo Xiaofei's uncontrollable gaze, Luocio suddenly said, "Did I do this on purpose?" Such a question made Mo Xiaofei absent-minded. Not only did he faint due to the impact, some people were even cut by the broken glass. Mo Xiaofei suddenly stopped attacking and stepped back. "It's not me, not me, not me." In his mind, it was like a balloon was expanding. Mo Xiaofei painfully grabbed his hair and stepped back. He was nervous and suddenly went crazy. "It's not me." He suddenly turned around and ran away crazily. This would easily attract people. Luocio frowned and didn't chase him. He just quickly looked at the scene again. Those who fainted and those who were cut by the glass were just minor injuries. No one was disfigured because of this. An oxygen supply machine flew out from the broken glass window of the nearby ward, automatically cutting off the connection with the oxygen cylinder. When the oxygen in the oxygen cylinder was almost exhausted, Luocio suddenly clenched his hand. The entire oxygen supply machine exploded. In order to make it more realistic, the wreckage began to scatter. Boss Luo took a look at the scene before they came. He thought that if such a scene couldn't be explained, then it would become a mystery in the hospital. Speaking of which, the clown face doesn't work on non-ordinary people. Yen PS1. Master, Asakahara Green in the book review section. Please let me go. PS2. Read the second update later. In view of the power of Master, Asakahara Green, I have carefully checked this chapter. If there are any mistakes, I will. PS3. Let me go back to my daily life of asking for recommendations and favorites, as if nothing happened. Equals PS4. Thank you to all the big shots who tipped me today. PS5. Actually, among the rewards, are there any young women, little girls crying emoji? Chapter 92. Genius 1, second, remember love, /go, /little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. By the way, I met your Uncle Yen in the hospital just now. Boss Luo planned to go back to Officer Ma's ward, but he met Ren Xiling before he arrived. Now he was in Sub-Editor Ren's Red Mini Clubman. So you tell me now. Luocio looked at the female driver. Ren Xiling shrugged. I heard the explosion and forgot about it. Is the explosion of the oxygen supply machine so powerful? It's so strange. Drive carefully. Luocio reminded her, and then looked out of the window. Uncle Yen was one of the younger ones among his father's group of people. He joined an international organization in Lyon, France a few years ago. Because his family had always kept in touch with Officer Ma, he occasionally heard some rumors about Uncle Yen from him. If it was his father, he would be happy to see his former brother had achieved so much. If her father was the first person she looked up to as an idol, then Uncle Yen could probably be considered as her second idol or something. Luocio suddenly smiled. He was indeed at the age of longing. It was the third night. Her father was lying here. The hospital still had the spirit of saving lives. Luo Qi couldn't help but feel lucky. At least, no matter what happened, the first rescue was carried out. But the future expenses might be astronomical, and her mother was waiting for the operation. But Luo Qi didn't feel despair. After the teachers in the school found out about her situation, they began to raise funds throughout the school. The hospital also helped to contact charity organizations, and some related reports and appeals were made. There were still many good people. The little girl didn't know too much about the society, but at this moment, she just realized that there were still people who were willing to help people in trouble. For example, this large envelope with words of encouragement on it contained a huge sum of money that Rahu would consider to be a huge sum of money. It suddenly appeared in his father's ward this morning, right next to his pillow. Who put it there? Luowan, don't give up. Your father will definitely get better. Looking at the words written on the big envelope again, he felt that these words were somewhat familiar. Luo Wu did not feel despair yet. Warmth flowed naturally, but at this moment something seemed to flash by the window. Luo Yu thought he saw it wrong, but when he walked to the window, he found a new big envelope. It was still a huge sum of money to her. The little girl looked at it in a daze. But this was the 5th floor. How did this big envelope get here? Was it a god? The little girl couldn't help but think. There were too many heartless rich people. And Mo Xiaofei didn't think there was anything wrong with taking the money that didn't belong to the rich and using it on the people in need. Love, go little, say, Kuai won't make the same mistake again. And Mo Xiaofei secretly warned himself. In order not to repeat the same tragedy, he became more cautious. He swore that he wouldn't let that evil place have any chance to take advantage of him again. Looking at the figure of the girl standing in a room on the 5th floor of the hospital, Mo Xiaofei clenched his fist. Not only did he have to better protect the social justice, but he also had to destroy that evil place. Yes, as long as that place was destroyed, he could atone for his sins and make up for his mistakes. Taking a deep breath, Mo Xiaofei continued to take those prisoners he caught and quietly came to the abandoned factory. He stirred the frame on the top of the factory so that all the prisoners could sit down. Mo Xiaofei took out bread and water from his backpack and sprinkled them on the ground. He needed these people to repent here, but he didn't intend to let them die like this until they came to their senses. Mo Xiaofei just stood there, watching this group of people start to rob each other for a little bit of food. Humans' deep-rooted bad habits won't disappear so easily. Mo Xiaofei felt that these people's prison term should at least be doubled. These people who were robbing food all fell to the ground as if they were knocked unconscious. Mo Xiaofei's pores seemed to have exploded in an instant. He turned around abruptly. In front of him, the boss of that place he met in the hospital was already standing quietly behind him. He found me. Mo Xiaofei gritted his teeth. The scattered steel, iron sticks, foreign nails, and other discarded things floated up from the ground in an instant, neatly lining up on his left and right sides. 39, 17 more than last time. Boss Luo looked at those prisoners who had fallen asleep. You didn't make a mistake this time, right? You've been here for a long time? Mo Xiaofei's vigilant expression became more and more intense. Meanwhile, the materials gathered around him began to increase and become denser. But at this moment, Mo Xiaofei only felt his chest was stuffy, and it became difficult for him to breathe. He felt dizzy and spat out a mouthful of blood. He knelt on the ground at once. Those steel and iron tools gathered around him fell to the ground at once. Mo Xiaofei coughed painfully. He covered his mouth, but blood overflowed from his fingers and couldn't be hidden at all. You, what did you do to me? Mo Xiaofei looked at Luoqiu in horror. Luoqiu said indifferently, You gained the opportunity to develop your brain at the cost of your soul. This directly gave you the power of psychokinesis. However, your body has no way to accommodate this power beyond its bearing range. To put it simply, as long as you don't stop using it, it will continue to grow stronger, and at the same time, it will wear down your body faster. In order to express it more vividly, Luoqiu made an analogy. What will happen in the end if you keep inflating a balloon? Mo Xiaofei suddenly felt cold all over. As if he saw a balloon that had been inflated to the limit, suddenly burst in front of his eyes. The balloon would burst in the end. And would he also die in the end? You did it on purpose? And Mo Xiaofei struggled to stand up, looking at Luoqiu and staring at him fiercely. Luoqiu didn't intend to explain anything about this part. This deal was indeed completed by him, so the new boss of the club directly took the blame. Then he would use the face of a villain. Luoqiu said indifferently, "I came to see you, nothing else. I just want to remind you, after you die, your soul will belong to us." And Mo Xiaofei rushed forward at once, but soon stopped. The opponent didn't do anything, but he understood that he felt fear. His legs lost strength because of fear. A few minutes ago, he even wanted to eradicate this evil place. Why was it so ridiculous? Boss, Luo suddenly said, "I have a question. The more you use your ability, the faster your body will collapse. And are you still willing to be a hero like before?" Mo Xiaofei found that he couldn't answer this question properly. Yen PS1. Daily recommendation equals. Chapter 93. Genius 1. Second, remember love /go /little. Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. And Mo Xiaofei sat there in a daze for a long time as if he had lost his soul. The boss of the club had left quietly. After a long while, Mo Xiaofei suddenly raised his head and subconsciously pointed at a steel pipe with his finger. The steel pipe directly left the ground and floated. Mo Xiaofei took a deep breath, then pointed at the second one, the third one. Well, it's all right. However, when he pointed at the fifth steel pipe, a wisp of blood gushed out from his nose. Clang! Clang! Several steel pipes fell to the ground, intertwining with each other. I have no power. I have no power. If I continue to use power, I will die. I will die. I will die! He hugged his head, curling up his body. And Mo Xiaofei didn't know how he came back home. And Mo Xiaofei's brain was almost blank. The threat of death at any time had caused a terrible wound that would never heal with just a light stroke in his heart. Xiaofei? And Mo Hongqi heard the noise, pushing his wheelchair out of the studio. Seeing his son full of curses, he couldn't help frowning. What happened? And Mo Xiaofei shook his head, saying instinctively, "Dade? Nothing, I'll cook for you." He walked into the kitchen. During this period, especially in recent days, Mo Xiaofei didn't cook for his father, who couldn't move as usual after returning home. If he didn't want to die, he shouldn't use his power. Then, should he continue to live like before? Continue to live like before. Anyway, there was no threat from Brother Quan from the beginning. I will die, I will die, I will die, I will die. I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. After dinner, Mo Xiaofei stealthily put his father's firefighter uniform and gas mask back to their original places when his father returned to the workshop without saying anything. Just when he stuffed them into the cabinet, he suddenly heard Mo Hongqi's voice. "Xiaofei, what are you doing?" Mo Xiaofei didn't hold it firmly, and a set of clothes fell to the ground. Mo Xiaofei turned around in a flurry, only to see his father approaching with a wheelchair. I plan to take it out and wash it. It's been in there for too long." Mo Xiaofei didn't dare to look at his father. He lowered his head and picked up the clothes on the ground as a cover. Mo Hongqi smiled and reached out to take the fire uniform from Mo Xiaofei's hand. He laid it on his lap and fiddled with it. There was a trace of nostalgia in his eyes. He had worn this uniform recently and several times at that. Mo Hongqi did not intend to expose him. Suddenly, he looked at his son and said, "While your mother is not at home, help me put it on. I haven't worn it in a long time." Regardless of whether Mo Xiaofei would agree or not, Mo Hongqi took the initiative to put on his shirt. Seeing this, Mo Xiaofei had to help his father put on his pants. Finally, he helped his father stand up and came to the mirror. Mo Hongqi rubbed his belly that had gained weight for a long time. He smiled and said, "Yes, my figure is completely out of shape. It is indeed a little ugly to wear." Mo Xiaofei hurriedly said. No, Dad, you look the best in it. Mo Hongqi smiled and didn't say anything. He just sat down, took off his clothes, and slowly folded them. Mo Xiaofei couldn't help but ask, Dad, have you ever regretted it? At that time, raging fire, thick smoke, screams, heat, and despair, these memories from a long time ago, were suddenly evoked. Mo Hongqi touched the collar of the firefighter uniform and carefully tidied it. He suddenly whispered, It's not because you want to be a hero or anything. When you put on this uniform, you should do something. What is the meaning it gives you? Mo Xiaofei was startled, but Mo Hongqi gently patted Mo Xiaofei's shoulder. Mo Xiaofei suddenly lowered his head. That also requires the ability to do something. If you don't have the ability, what's the point? Mo Hongqi was silent for a while, and suddenly asked, If you are in a fire, the conditions are very bad, and your physical strength has reached the limit, and you know that you may die if you stay for 10 more seconds. But you have a person who has fainted due to excessive inhalation. If you take him away, you have no way to safely evacuate. What will you do? Mo Xiaofei looked at him blankly. Mo Hongqi shook his head and said, If you insist, there is a great chance that you will lose 2 lives. But if you give up, no one will blame you. After all, you have tried your best. So what will you choose? If you continue to use this ability, your body will collapse faster. Are you still willing to be a hero? 2 different questions, but they seemed to be very compatible. They kept intertwining in Mo Xiaofei's mind and turned into a bottomless whirlpool. And at the bottom of the whirlpool was death. I don't know. The class meeting. About the fundraising activities organized to help Luo Sha's classmates. They didn't know the situation of Luo Sha's father. The class organized a group of students to visit him. Mo Xiaofei subconsciously wanted to sign up, but when he raised his hand halfway, he quietly put it down. No one noticed him. From now on, he couldn't use his ability, or his body would collapse. He didn't want to make his parents sad. The short hero dream had been shattered at this moment. If he needed to return to reality, he would be an ordinary person, a freshman in high school. Once again, he returned to his timid self. I heard that several students in our school died a few days ago. It seems that they were killed by someone when they mingled with the underworld. Oh, so horrible. I heard that Lily's father also disappeared these days. Don't say that. Although her father often beats people when he is drunk, he is still her father. He must be worried. Alas, what happened recently? I always feel that there are a lot of bad things. Those people, those prisoners in the prison. Mo Xiaofei lowered his head. He went home in a daze yesterday, so he didn't pay attention to those guys. If he didn't pay attention to them, they might starve to death. Mo Xiaofei gave a start. His hands and feet were cold. When the heat brought about by psychokinesis was completely cooled down due to the threat of death, as if it was completely cooled by cold water. He suddenly woke up with a start. How many families had he created that had fallen into pain? Teacher, I have something to do. I need to ask for leave. In the class meeting, this thin and weak boy, who usually kept his head down and remained silent, suddenly stood up, and his voice was heard clearly by everyone. After saying that, he quickly ran out of the classroom, leaving nothing behind. Ghost scream. Rin Xiling frowned, looking at Mouse Chong, who was known as Mouse Chong in the underworld. Basically, it was not only the police who could develop informants. As a senior reporter, she also needed such people. Yeah, 2 of my friends were short of money. They had no choice but to go to that place to get some scrap iron, steel electric coil, and so on to sell. In the end, they didn't get the things, but they were almost scared to death. Idiot, there are no ghosts in this world. Rin Xiling shook her head. It must be your bad friends who did something wrong and scared themselves. Really? Mouse Chong said vividly. I heard from those 2 guys that they heard a tinkling sound, and then saw dozens of figures, as if they were hanging in the air, wailing all the time. I heard that there were ghosts in that place before it was abandoned. It's so evil. Really? Ren Xiling frowned. Dozens of people. Tinkling sound hanging? Wailing? Where on earth is that place? Ren Xiling suddenly asked. After asking Mouse Chong, she gulped down the hot, fresh milk in the cup and stood up quickly. Alas, madam, did you forget something? You stay here and watch. If you see that damn bodyguard go downstairs, I'll pay you double. Sub-editor Rin hurriedly left the ice room after saying that. Mouse Chong counted with his fingers and felt that double the information fee was not bad. He simply ordered a cold drink. It was so hot outside, it was better to sit here. Wait, what if they don't come downstairs? Mouse Chong stared blankly at the red Mini Clubman that was driving away. Old Ma, I just received the news that they might have found out where those missing people are. The female driver who was used to speeding on the road was also used to making illegal phone calls. In the hospital, Officer Ma, who was eating the waste and kidney tonic soup made by his wife, choked. Are you kidding? I said it's possible. I'll go and have a look. I'll inform you if there's any news. Wait, don't act recklessly. Tell me the location. I'll ask my assistant to go and have a look. No, you come to the hospital to pick me up. Officer Ma frowned. If you really meet that guy, you can't deal with him. Can you get out of bed? Are you kidding me? When I was a soldier in Yunnan, I couldn't die even if I was shot by 5 or 6 bullets. Are you really okay? Ren Xiling looked at Officer Ma, who was still wearing the hospital gown, and stopped the car. Officer Ma touched his mustache and suddenly looked at Ren Xiling's car window with a surprised expression. Sub-editor Ren was stunned and turned her head, subconsciously. Unexpectedly at this moment, her hand was caught by someone. Officer Ma skillfully handcuffed Ren Xiling's arm to the steering wheel. Sub-editor Ren was angry. I treat you as my family member. How dare you handcuff me? Officer Ma said with a bitter face, Be reasonable, sister-in-law. You'd better leave the rest to the police. You stay here. If I find anything, I'll call for backup. Ma, how'd? Let go of me, or I'll tell your wife that you go to the health care center 10 times a month. Officer Ma pretended that he didn't hear him and pulled out his car key. But he couldn't help but retort, If I could go there 10 times a month, why would I need to drink the waste and kidney-nourishing soup? Don't court death. If that guy is really hiding inside, he's more dangerous than you think. Rin Xiling was so angry that she didn't say a word. Officer Ma looked at her and had to get off the car. After getting off the car, Sub-editor Rin said in a low voice, The phone is turned on. Keep the communication. I can react if something happens. I'll deal with you later. Got it, sister-in-law. Officer Ma closed the car door and climbed over the iron fence slowly towards the factory building. Master, don't we need to care about Miss Rin? In one of the factory building floors, you let go of the shutter and let it return to its original state. The club's boss also felt incredible that Ren Xiling and Uncle Ma could find this place. He wanted to give Uncle Ma a thumbs up, but he shook his head and said directly, Don't care. What about Officer Ma? Yi continued to ask. Luoqiu thought for a while and said, I just wanted to see what state Mo Xiaofei is in today. I don't know what will happen next. Let's wait and see. He walked to the other side of the room, opened the door, and quietly looked down at a place in the workshop. In the abandoned workshop, Mo Xiaofei was stirring the capstan to put down the people who had been hanging for a day and a night. The color on the young man's face couldn't be distinguished. However, at this moment, a fluttering butterfly rushed in out of nowhere. Luoqiu stretched out his hand, and the butterfly finally stopped on his finger. Just when it stopped, the butterfly flew away as if it was frightened. Bathed in the faint brilliance, the butterfly gradually changed into a familiar figure. Little butterfly monster, Luo dance. Why was this butterfly monster here? Boss Luo showed a puzzled look. Unexpectedly, this little butterfly monster said in a panic, There's a horrible thing chasing me. Run. Luoqiu gave a start and kept silent. The door of the workshop was opened at the same time. Officer Ma Mahoud. Let them go by themselves after they wake up. Mo Xiaofei thought, although these people are weak, they should be able to leave by themselves if they are released. Since I plan to be an ordinary person again, I'll make a clean break with these absurd and weird things. Sorry. Mo Xiaofei silently looked at the people who were put down, but the ones he was apologizing to were the family and friends behind these people. Rumble, rumble. The door of the workshop sounded at this moment. Mo Xiaofei gave a start. His first reaction was, is the boss of that place coming again? Is he going to laugh at me again? Mo Xiaofei took a deep breath. Let it be. Thinking back, what I did during this period is indeed worth laughing at. I have always been so timid. Even if I have gained power, it hasn't changed. The teenager felt bitter in his heart. He looked through the gaps of those abandoned machines, but he didn't see the boss of the club, that police officer, another victim who was hurt because of his recklessness. Why is he here? How did he find this place? Is this also the arrangement of that place? Mo Xiaofei retreated to the side of those prisoners in horror. He tripped and fell to the ground. What should I do? Am I going to be discovered? Run. Mo Xiaofei was about to get up and leave this place. Instinctively, he wanted to fly up, but he stopped in an instant. The more you use your ability, the faster your body will collapse. I will die. I will die. Mo Xiaofei looked around in panic, then hurriedly rolled on the ground a few times to dirty his body. Finally, he wrapped the scattered chains on the ground around his body, and then pretended to be unconscious, lying on the ground. His heart was beating fast. *T. There's really someone here. Hey, you guys, are you okay? Officer Ma walked quickly to the front of the people, squatting down to help a guy up. He stretched out his hand to check his pulse. Seeing that he was still alive, he was relieved. Wake up, wake up, wake up. He shook the people he could touch. Mo Xiaofei listened to the voice and footsteps getting closer to him in horror. The more flustered he was, the harder it was to keep calm. He accidentally touched the chains on his body and made a sound. Officer Ma rushed up instantly, slapping his cheeks hard. Mo Xiaofei had no choice but to open his eyes, saying in horror, Who are you? Finally, one of you is awake. Officer Ma took a deep breath. Don't panic, I'm a police officer. Although I didn't bring my ID, I'm really a police officer. So I'll save you. Now tell me, who caught you and brought you to this place? Where is that person now? Mo Xiaofei shook his head, saying that he didn't know anything. Officer Ma was helpless. He knew that some victims couldn't calm down after being overly frightened, so he didn't ask too much. Instead, he took out the phone. Well, we found a lot of people. Let's not talk about it now. I'll ask the bureau to send someone to rescue. That's good. Just treat them as victims and wait to be rescued by the police. As for the explanation, we'll talk about it later. Looking at the old police officer who was still in the hospital gown, Mo Xiaofei opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but found that he was in no position to speak. He lowered his head deeply. Bang! A black shadow suddenly rushed in from the glass window above. It was abnormally strong, abnormally ugly, and abnormally terrifying. Its whole body was covered with disgusting mucus, as if it had been burned or bitten by countless poisonous snakes and centipedes. The moment it appeared, it brought with it a burst of foul smell. The crystal skull seemed to grow naturally on its chest, but it also seemed to be inlaid, which added to the terrifying atmosphere. Seeing such a thing appear in broad daylight, Officer Ma's phone suddenly fell to the ground. He was very frightened. Damn it. What day is it today? July 14th? Officer Ma swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He had been working for more than 20 years and had seen all kinds of ferocious criminals, but he had never seen such a horrible monster. He stepped back in horror. The monster-like thing in front of him suddenly turned its head, and its ghost-like eyes looked directly at him, approaching step by step. Officer Ma picked up an iron bar from the ground in a panic. feeling the evil and horror brought by this thing. He burst out with the courage to beat it down no matter what it was. The iron bar fiercely smashed down on the head of this ugly thing. If it was an ordinary person, his head would definitely be broken and bleeding, or even a direct fatal blow. However, it had no effect on this ugly thing. Instead, this ugly thing suddenly waved its arm and fiercely swept him away. The old injury had not healed, and this new injury was also serious. Officer Ma suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing himself being swept away by this thing, he really rejoiced that he had made a wise decision to lock up Ren Xiling just now. Officer Ma struggled to stand up. Looking at the panic-stricken student, he roared, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and leave. Do you want to die or not?" Mo Xiaofei quivered, turned around, and fled in fear. After a few steps, he stopped. "Officer, you should go too. This thing is a monster." "What did you call me?" Police officer." "Then why are you still talking nonsense?" Officer Ma picked up another iron bar, gritting his teeth. "If I leave, what about these guys? Do I still know the word police?" "Don't get in my way. I've called people. They'll come soon. If you really want to help me, get out of here. Far. Go. Go away." Mo Xiaofei ran out of the workshop in horror. That monster, he couldn't deal with it. He would die, not worth it. Those people, not worth it, not worth it. If you continue to use this ability, your body will collapse even faster. Will die, will die, will die, will die, will die, don't want to die, don't want to die, don't want to die, don't want to die. Do I still know the word police? Will die, will die, will die, will die, ability, coward, will die, coward, don't want to die, coward. Dad, have you ever regretted? Will die, will die, will die. Do I still know the word police? If you continue to use this ability, your body will collapse even faster. Will die. Collapse. 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 Instead, it's about what you should do after you put on this piece of clothing. What is the meaning it gives you? F***CK. I'm really old. And that stupid rule, no gun is allowed when there's no duty. F***CK. F***CK. In just over a minute, Ma Haud felt that it was much harder than doing 10 times of physical training. Spitting out another mouthful of blood, Ma Haud wanted to stand up. "I don't admit that I'm old." However, a sudden feeling of dizziness caused his eyelids to become heavy. His body went limp and he fell into a deep sleep. The fallen police officer didn't know that the ugly thing was walking toward him step by step. The ugly thing opened its bloody mouth. The green light in its eyes flashed, intending to bite the guy who suddenly fell down. Delicious food. It had no sense, nothing. It didn't know where it came from, nor did it have the ability to think about it. It just felt hungry. Fresh blood and meat were constantly tempting it. All of a sudden, its body was hit by something, and it was knocked away. Looking at the food that was far away from its sight, the food that should have been in its mouth, it suddenly went crazy. It pounced on the guy that it bounced away, but it was bounced away again. It didn't know how to think, but it felt that this guy was extremely fragile. It was indeed fragile. After bouncing away the monster twice, Mo Xiaofei was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. His whole body seemed to be protesting against his behavior, but he gritted his teeth, clenching his hands as tightly as possible, enduring the pain in his brain that felt like it would explode at any time, making all the steel and iron pipes around him float up. Mo Xiaofei waved his arms fiercely. Dozens, hundreds of large and small metals, like bullets, madly shot toward the ugly monster. Chi! Chi! Hua! Hua! The metals hit the ugly thing, just like hitting a wall. It was so hard that there was no way to penetrate it. The monster withstood the impact of a large number of metals, walking toward Mo Xiaofei step by step. Mo Xiaofei suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood with a splitting headache. Countless voices sounded in his mind, telling him not to care or he would die. The young man suddenly let out a furious roar. All the nearby metals crazily rushed toward the ugly monster just now. However, this time, These pieces of metal were no longer shooting at the monster. Instead, they came one after another, one piece after another, squeezing towards the monster and wrapping around it. The steel plates squeezed the monster's body, while the thick and long steel roots wrapped around the monster's limbs and neck. More and more, more and more, more and more. It was coming closer, 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 closer with great difficulty. Mo Xiaofei's eyes were bloodshot. Blood kept oozing out of his eyes and ears at the same time. He didn't know what was supporting him. He didn't think it was necessary to continue this. However, his body and his will were doing these irrational things. The monster was still approaching. The metal and steel that wrapped around its body had reached a terrifying level. It was like a giant magnet that attracted countless metals. Its neck was clearly twisted, and its hands were clearly twisted. Step by step, step by step. Finally, it stopped and opened its mouth, seemingly making some sort of sound. Boom! The huge metal mountain finally fell to the ground, and the monster couldn't move anymore. Mo Xiaofei knelt down on the ground. Blood flowed out from the 7 orifices on his face, as if he couldn't feel his heartbeat. His body was as weak as when he was beaten to the ground by Brother Quan. Like a flickering light in the wind, it seemed that he had reached the end. Mo Xiaofei suddenly smiled. In the blood, he revealed a smile. Ah, it seemed that I could understand your thoughts at that time. Dad, have I become the hero in your heart? Yen, 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 PS1. Sorry for the late update, but this chapter of 7,000 words should be enough to make up for it. PS2. Tomorrow is the follow-up content. Chapter 94. Genius 1, second remember love, /go, /little? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. It should be an instinctive fear. Luocho looked at the little butterfly monster clutching the corner of his clothes. Looking at Luocho's gaze, the little butterfly monster released the corner of his clothes at once, looking more uneasy. Coming down from the upper floor of the workshop, Luocho walked to Officer Ma's side, waving his hand to let him float to one side so that he could sit comfortably. Those piles of metal and steel scattered at once, finally revealing the ugly monster's body. Under the cover of numerous steel bars, the monster's body was actually pierced by many steel bars. Even if it couldn't move, or even if it was dead, it could still maintain a standing posture because of these steel bars piercing through its body. As an extra, wasn't it a little bit scary? Thinking of this, Boss Luo suddenly looked at the little butterfly monster. Don't worry, this is a prop I need temporarily. It has nothing to do with you. Luo Dance breathed a sigh of relief, then opened her eyes wide, looking around. What are you doing? Is it also to fulfill the customer's request? Customer, do you want to know? If you give us something, maybe we can tell you? Miss Servant Girl, who quietly appeared behind the little butterfly monster, now whispered in the ear of the little butterfly monster. Luo Dance was startled, thinking that there was nothing valuable on her body. She quickly shook her head and retreated to one side. Luocho walked to Mo Xiaofei's side at this time, followed by Yi. She glanced at the teenager, who closed his eyes with a smile on the ground, whispering, Master, don't you intend to take away his soul? Miss Servant Girl knew that if those steel bars didn't pierce through the monster quietly outside Mo Xiaofei's ability, Mo Xiaofei wouldn't be able to hold on. That kind of explosive ability would only make Mo Xiaofei's body explode directly, but now he was not completely dead. Her new master was secretly controlling the scene that had once played out. Luocho crouched down and took out a pack of tissues from his clothes. He then picked up a bottle of water that was scattered nearby. He wet the tissue and slowly wiped the blood on Mo Xiaofei's face. The courage that burst out in an instant defeated his own weakness and fear of death. I don't know how to define a hero, but at least it can't be separated from courage. The club boss, who had his own considerations, gently stroked the other side of Mo Xiaofei's face. But is this courage a momentary burst, or can it be sustained? In the future, he will face the same problems and choices. Facing the same situation again, will he explode with unparalleled courage like this time? Putting down the clean Mo Xiaofei gently, Luo Chio stood up and looked at the servant girl with a smile. It's like a good wine that has been aged and brewed. If time can make the courage hidden in this soul mellow and emit a more charming fragrance, are you willing to wait? Yi is willing to accompany the master and keep waiting. Love, go, little, say, W, chew. Officer Ma just felt that he seemed to have forgotten something, as if he was just distracted. When he opened his eyes, he only saw dozens of people lying on the ground. He looked at the mobile phone in his hand. Damn, when did the screen explode? Have I called someone? Looking at his colleagues who were carrying these people to the ambulance outside, and looking at his sister-in-law who was walking towards him as if she was going to settle accounts, Officer Ma suddenly felt very confused. This matter was really strange. 2 days later, Officer Ma still couldn't figure out the reason. They didn't know who caught these missing people. It seemed that the appearance of the murderer was very vague. Some said it was a strong man. Some said they didn't see clearly, and some said it was a woman. What the hell was a woman? Under the different opinions, they couldn't even make a jigsaw of the criminal's appearance. A group of people in the police station frowned for 2 days. Only Officer Ma, who went out without permission, received strong greetings from the hospital and the leaders. He was almost imprisoned in the ward. Today, he could only read the newspaper out of boredom. Kiki. There was a knock on the door. A teenager with crutches stood in front of Officer Ma's door with a hesitant look. Who are you? Officer Ma was stunned for a moment. His voice was muffled, but he soon remembered that this was one of the people he rescued from the factory that day. It seemed that because of the serious injury, he was directly hospitalized. It's you. Officer Ma frowned based on his impression. I remember your name is Fei. Xiaofei something? Mo Xiaofei. Mo Xiaofei took a deep breath, walking to Officer Ma's bedside with crutches. Officer, do you feel better? Officer Ma smiled, talking about how things were in the past. Now, this little injury could be healed in minutes. So, what do you want from me? Mo Xiaofei plucked up his courage. Officer, I'm here to surrender. Surrender? Officer Ma was stunned. Mo Xiaofei took a deep breath. I'm the one who killed those people in the garage. I'm also the one who injured you. I'm also the one who caught so many people and locked them up. Officer Ma opened his mouth, but frowned, stretching out his palm and opening it. Try punching my palm? Mo Xiaofei was taken aback. Hearing this, he punched at the palm. Use more strength, didn't you drink milk? Officer Ma suddenly said, sarcastically. Mo Xiaofei gritted his teeth, punching the palm with all his strength, making a paw sound, but he still couldn't shake the palm. Officer Ma sneered. Look at you, you can't even kill a dog. You can kill people, but can you hurt me? Can you even catch dozens of people? Are you trying to fly to heaven? No, it's really me. Mo Xiaofei hurriedly said. Officer Ma frowned and interrupted, shouting in a deep voice. Boy, I tell you, I don't know what's wrong with you. Did your head get hit by a door when you were caught? But I can tell you honestly, those who are caught with you, if the murderer is really you, they will definitely testify against you. But those guys can't even tell who the murderer is. Also, if you want to admit the crime of hurting me, at least wait until you have six-pack abs, instead of the current pork ribs. Mo Xiaofei hurriedly said. But the garage is indeed built by me. Officer Ma said impatiently. Then tell me, how did you kill them? Mo Xiaofei recalled for a while, ignoring the psychokinesis. He didn't know if that place would be unfavorable to the officer in front of him if he exposed the existence of that place. He didn't want to see any sad things happen again. I used my fists, my feet, to kick them. Officer Ma frowned. I don't know where you heard it from. Those dead people were indeed beaten before they died, and there were also traces of serious injuries and broken bones. But these weren't the fatal ones. What? Mo Xiaofei gave a start. How could it be? Officer Ma said in a deep voice. Bastard, get out. I have no obligation to explain these to you, and I don't have time to play with you. If you're not clear-headed, go and take a mirror. This is the hospital. It's very convenient. Get out, get out. In fact, Officer Ma, who could get out of bed, directly got off at this moment, pushing Mo Xiaofei out directly. Like driving away a salesman, he waved his hand and said, "Get out!" After closing the door, Officer Ma muttered, "At least you have to tell me, how did those people's hearts disappear?" According to the autopsy report of those dead people, the fatal cause was that their hearts were missing. What's wrong with this guy? Officer Ma frowned, unable to understand. What happened in these days? What the F***CK? And Mo Xiaofei couldn't understand it either. Although he didn't die, he seemed to have activated some kind of premonition. If there was another outburst of the same intensity, he would definitely be dead. However, those arrested people couldn't explain it clearly. No one remembered the man in the firefighter uniform. Even the scene that happened in the factory, Officer Ma seemed to have completely forgotten it. He was the only one who remembered everything. Was it a dream? Not at all. Looking at the guy who suddenly appeared in the corridor with a fruit basket in his hand, Mo Xiaofei stopped subconsciously, turning around and wanting to escape. But he finally plucked up his courage, walking up with firm steps. "Did you do all this?" Luo Qiu looked at the clock on the wall and said, "It's better to keep some things hidden than to make them public. The factory is not only your personal business." Mo Xiaofei gritted his teeth. "The car repair room, was it also you who hid it?" Luo Qiu shook his head. That was another unexpected situation. "You're a guest, so it's okay to tell you. Those people were not killed by you. You just seriously injured them at most. However, although they were not killed by you, they wouldn't have faced a worse situation if you didn't injure them. Therefore, you can be regarded as an accomplice. As for what you think, it's not within our service scope. Of course, if you feel guilty and go on the road of self-destruction, we should be happy to see that. After all, you just need to use your ability a few more times." And Mo Xiaofei lowered his head. It was not a direct kill, but he was the one who caused it. And Mo Xiaofei suddenly raised his head firmly, looking straight into Luo Qiu's eyes without avoiding. "I won't use this demonic power again. Even if I use it, I will only use it to save people. Do you expect me to self-destruct because of guilt? No. I will feel guilty, I will feel crazy guilty, but I will never go on the road you expect. I won't be depressed. I will make up for the mistakes I have made and the sins I have committed." Luo Qiu put on a wicked face. "Oh, really? Make up for your sins? Is this the reason why you want to survive and not consider those families who are in deep pain because of you?" And Mo Xiaofei took a deep breath and said, "I won't say any reason. I know my sins can't be made up for in this life. But if I self-destruct, it will only increase more sadness. I can survive, at least I can do something. Even if I feel uneasy, even if it will be hard and sad, even if it will take my whole life." He looked at Luo Qiu with an inexplicable brilliance flashing in his eyes. "I will also bear these sins and move forward with reverence." Such a look was good. It was much better than the last time they met. He seemed to be able to smell a faint fragrance. "What are you looking at?" Sub-editor Rin wiped the water stains on her hands while walking out of the toilet. Boss Luo was actually waiting outside the toilet. A child. Yen PS1. Don't ask me why Sir Ma couldn't recognize Mo Xiaofei's voice. Try talking with a gas mask. Oh my god. PS2. I originally planned to write it together with the previous chapter, but it was already 2:30 in the morning. So I had to give up and treat this chapter as the follow-up. As a result, I still couldn't catch up with yesterday's 11:59 p.m. update under smiley face, 3 underscore. But reasonably speaking, it should be better to read 2 chapters separately. PS3. I don't know if Mo Xiaofei's ending is good or not, or if some people are disgusted. Maybe he should die. But I hope that the one who dies is the arrogant, and ignorant young man who only knows how to avoid problems and is a coward. We, all of us, have done something wrong more or less. We also hope to be forgiven. What we need is to move forward with this forgiveness in reverence. PS4. The club needs high-quality souls, the better. PS5. I want to protest. I'm really not a PDA maniac. PS6. Besides, I just found out that a book friend sent me a push packet. Sorry, I'm the kind of person who doesn't send red packets, so I basically don't look at red packets. It's an accident to see it today. So today I want to thank these big shots. Cute_shoo-shoo. Let love section go with the wind. Heavenly cloud jinglong. Full of lies. Masked dancing sky. Silent record. Power 67918. Incomplete tree. Chaotic heart. Perfect gold carrot. PS7. Yes, I'm the PS7 who broke through the sky again. For the sake of updating late at night. Do you have any recommendation tickets? Of course, the taste of the reward is better equals. Chapter 95. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. A few days ago, the police rescued a number of men and women from an abandoned factory in the suburbs. The criminals are still on the run. The police appeal to the public, if you see any suspicious person, please inform us as soon as possible. According to the report, some of the rescued men and women turned themselves into the police. One of the men claimed that he had stolen property from many houses. It was the sound of a radio station on the car. Well, it seems that it's not a bad thing for these people to be arrested. Zhang Qingrui looked at Luo Qiu, who was sitting in the passenger seat. The club's new boss was still wondering why he was here. He looked out of the window and murmured, yes. Why was he here, in Zhang Qingrui's car on the road? That would start from this morning. In view of the lax management of the class with only 2 people, Boss Luo thought he must have been bewitched to choose such a professional boss. Today, he happily chose to turn left and step into the club. The phone rang. Luo Qiu, you haven't come to school yet? Zhang Qingrui suddenly answered the phone. The last time he came to school should be the time when the singer was shooting the MV in school? It seemed like it had been a while, right? Boss Luo said after a moment of silence. What's the matter? Well, didn't the professor inform you? Boss Luo, who always checked his mobile phone, mainly to see if sub-editor had any strange news, or if she suddenly came to his school, said no. Oh, where are you? I'll come to pick you up. Zhang Qingrui said in an indisputable tone, I have something to do. The eldest miss of Guyu Zhai, who had said last time that she was going to enjoy her school life, was now driving her yellow Volkswagen Polo attentively, as if she was at peace with the world. Although she was much better than a certain female driver, Boss Luo still took the initiative to ask, So, where are you going to send me? How does it feel to be suddenly pulled into a car? Let's talk about it later. There's no time to explain now. Get in the car first. That was the explanation he gave when he got on the bus. It's not about where I'm sending you. It's about where we're going. Zhang Qingrui focused on the windshield. The yellow Volkswagen Polo was driving steadily on the same lane. The professor told me to go to his house. Theoretically, they shouldn't have called me, right? As the class monitor of this class, I feel that I have an obligation to take care of your credits. Zhang Qingrui said calmly, It's about time for you to show up in front of the professor. Aren't you afraid that he'll forget that you're his student? There were only 2 people in a class. If they could forget, it would be considered a talent, right? So, you actually don't know why the professor called you. In fact, he simply wanted to find someone to accompany him, to boost his courage, or to pull someone down with him. Zhang Qingrui suddenly glanced at Luo Qiu. Perhaps she had read something from his eyes. She knew what he was thinking. Therefore, such a stare was actually a glare. They didn't speak on the way. The paleontology professor, Luo Qiu's supervisor, lived in a group of villas built in the early stage of the development of the new city. Small brown porcelain pieces were pasted on the outer wall of the 3-story villa-like building. It was a bit old. On one side of this European-style villa, Green creepers grew all over the wall. However, after seeing such a villa, Boss Luo felt that the rumor that the professor just wanted to scam research funds should be discounted. This kind of ancient building was also in the rich area. The research funds must be burning every minute. They pressed the doorbell when they arrived. The paleontology supervisor came out to greet them. The professor was quite surprised to see another person besides Zhang Qingrui. Zhang Qingrui smiled at the professor's astonishment. "Professor, Luocio said that he also wanted to visit you." In order to avoid embarrassment, Luocio had to nod. Before coming here, he had planned to leave if there was nothing else. However, after coming here, Boss Luo became interested in this kind of villa mixed with Western style. The mottled creepers on the wall were rarely seen. "Since you're here, come in." The professor nodded without saying anything, leading the way for them. They walked through the front yard and into the villa. Luocio kept looking at the indoor environment, finally being led to a workroom-like room. The professor didn't say anything, directly explaining the purpose of asking Zhang Qingrui to come here. He pointed at a workbench in the middle of the room. "This is your homework during this period, and it will be counted into the final exam score." This was King embarrassing. Knowing that the professor didn't want to call his boss Luo, he just pretended not to hear the latter part of the professor's words, moving his eyes to the workbench. What did he see? Some large and small pieces of mud were scattered around. It was as if they had been part of a huge rock or an even bigger piece of mud in the beginning. But in the mud, he could vaguely see some gray matter. From the exposed tip of the iceberg, it seemed to be some bones. Zhang Qingrui walked around the workbench, suddenly frowning. "Professor, is this a fossil?" It was originally a complete piece, but an accident happened during the transportation. The professor said indifferently, "Your task is to clean up the remains of these fossils. Remember to be careful. Don't break the things inside. After taking them out, you still need to restore them, so this is a long work." Hearing the word long work, Boss Luo didn't feel anything. Instead, he felt that he had finally learned something useful in this field. Putting aside those boring texts and theories, Luocio felt that it was very interesting to deal with these bone fragments here. He subconsciously reached out to touch one of the broken pieces of mud. The sunset and wind are sad. The sound is everywhere, not worrying to whom is. A faint, indistinct elegiac voice suddenly sounded in Luocio's ears, flowing into his heart. He was slightly stunned, and when he was about to distinguish it carefully, he suddenly heard the sound of knocking on the door. "Dad, tea and snacks are ready. Let your students have a rest first." They came a long way. It was a graceful woman who appeared in front of the door. She didn't wear any makeup, but her eyes were moving. Luocio looked at the woman who appeared in front of him in astonishment, not to mention her outstanding appearance. Her identity was Qin Chiu, Yu Sanyang, Yen 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 Yen. Chapter 96. Genius 1. Second, remember love divided by little? I'll provide you with wonderful novels to read. The High Jade Emperor's Heart Seal Sutra was a wonderful Taoist classic. Love, go, little, say, W. Kwanzaa Lu once said, "Only cultivating one's fate and not one's nature is the first disease of cultivation. Only cultivating one's ancestral nature and not one's alchemy will make it difficult for another spirit to become a saint." This was the formula of cultivating one's fate. Of course, it wasn't a classic that could be seen in the market, but the inner part of the High Jade Emperor's Heart Seal Sutra. Tegi Inzi later talked about some of its contents. This was probably what Old Ghost had comprehended from the bits and pieces of information he had collected from his master back then. A lifetime was a reincarnation. Great sorrow and great joy, or a thin stream flowing, was the cultivation of the sincerity of this life. After a stage of cultivation was completed, it was like waking up from a golden millet dream, feeling the past, and then being reborn into the next stage of reincarnation. The body would become young and return to its youth. At the same time, it would forget everything and be reborn into another stage of life. But no matter how miraculous it was impossible to return to the embryo state. The professor was called Qin Fong, who was unmarried. Qin Chiyu was actually an orphan adopted by him. Luoqiu was drinking the tea brewed by Yu Sanyang. Qin Chiyu, who had become a painter in this life, while listening to Qin Fong's detailed requirements for the following work. As for Qin Chiyu, she simply greeted him and went out. She should be going back to her studio. Luoqiu didn't intend to have any interaction with this strange monk. Naturally, he was more interested in the homework assigned by Qin Fong. He didn't know which part of the bone he touched at the beginning belonged to, but because he cared about it, he quietly touched the same place again. A voice like weeping and complaining. Perhaps it wasn't a voice, but something like a thought. Luo Qi felt that he could no longer be classified as an ordinary person. So when he encountered such a wonderful thing, his heart was more or less moved, but his expression was still calm. The evening wind is sad, and the sad voice rises from everywhere. I don't know who I'm talking to. The intermittent voice finally formed a complete sentence. There seems to be only one sentence. Luoqiu felt for a moment and then touched another smaller piece of mud. This time it was only half a sentence. The mountains and highlands are vast, and there is no time to see you again. Another half sentence. It is hard to describe the feelings between the two. No one knows the resentment in my heart. Luoqiu didn't know how to connect the words. He just wrote down what he heard on a piece of white paper. That's a pretty good regular script. At some point, Zhang Qingrui was standing beside Luoqiu. Zhang strands of hair fell from one side, almost touching the table. Luoqiu was startled. Was he too focused on the thoughts contained in these fossils? I've been doing my homework. Zhang Qingrui smiled. Did you reveal your lazy nature when the professor wasn't around? Basically, he forgot that Zhang Qingrui was here. Luoqiu thought for a while. At the beginning, he seemed to have noticed something, but as he listened to more and more sounds, he was unconsciously immersed in these voices. As if he saw the gobi, the desert, the setting sun, and the lonely wild goose. Someone was holding a musical instrument and crying. Sorry. Luoqiu heaved a sigh. He was about to tidy up the things he casually wrote down. Considering that there were so many scattered bones, if different pieces of mud and bones had different sentences, he couldn't write them all down in a short time. Unexpectedly, eldest Miss Zhang picked up the piece of paper with the messy sentences written on it. After carefully reading a few sentences, she suddenly asked, "Why are you randomly writing Hujia 18 beats here?" It was indeed very strange. Facing these fossils, he was actually leisurely writing a few words of the Hujia's 18 beats. Hujia 18 beats? Luoqiu was stunned and asked curiously, "Are you sure?" Zhang Qingrui suddenly frowned. It shouldn't be wrong. My grandmother had some attainments in ancient zither. When I was little, I could often hear her playing Hujia 18 beats. Out of curiosity, I recited its original text. Luoqiu nodded. He suddenly stood up and bent down towards a pile of mud and stones with the tools beside him. He looked just like a good student who was concentrating on his homework. Zhang Qingrui gave a start. The next second, Professor Qin Fong pushed the door open and walked in while reading some documents. Ms. Zhang had a bad feeling. This Luoqiu was really smart. She smiled and put down the paper in her hand. Then, she reached out and touched one of the small pieces of mud. Suddenly, she felt a slight electric shock, which made her fingertips shrink slightly. But when she tried to feel it again, there was no difference. It was probably just static electricity. Yushua, you're not young anymore. Isn't it time to consider getting married? Your dad and I are very worried about you. Guo Yushua listened to his mother's call from his hometown with a little annoyance, casually replying. But his eyes never left his girlfriend for a moment. He found that he couldn't take his eyes off her anymore. It was a brand new image. He was no longer rustic, and his entire body began to emit a charming aura. His girlfriend, who was drawing on the drawing board by the window, turned her head and smiled at him. Guo Yushua's annoyance seemed to be cleared away at once. He felt the heartbeat and satisfaction that he hadn't felt for a long time. His girlfriend was just as he wished. She even quit her job at the gas station and enrolled in a university's advanced course. Although she said it was hard to study again, she smiled sweetly and said it was very fulfilling. She had never felt so fulfilled before. His girlfriend, who didn't like to watch political news, started to watch such programs with him, saying she was interested in them. She started to discuss some issues with him. We were no longer monotonous here. We talked about not only trivial things. We talked about movies and the background of the magician and the monster on the island in Tempest. We listened to the string serenade in C major and danced around the house. When it was quiet at night, we hugged each other by the window, looking at the city lights. Oh, I ran out of paints. Gui Yushua smiled. He couldn't restrain his love for his girlfriend. He quickly put on his coat and said, "It doesn't matter, I'll buy it for you right away." "In that case, I'll cook and wait for you. Today, I want to try making red wine steak." Guo Yushua nodded with a smile. "Let's go to the place where I bought painting tools last time." He suddenly had a strange idea. Was that place actually heaven? Just by using one of his kidneys, he was able to make his girlfriend so perfect. Guo Yushua drove away from the apartment's underground garage in a good mood. After he went out, a black car parked by the road slowly followed him. Chapter 97. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. As the saying goes, sleepy in spring, sleepy in autumn, and sleepy in summer. This kind of habit seemed to be suitable for demons as well. At this moment, the little butterfly monster stretched herself and let out a comfortable end sound. This place was not bad. There was a lot of food suitable for her. There was a variety of food, and 1 change a day was enough for her to eat for a whole year. The only bad thing was that she needed to pay more attention during the day, because there would be a lot of tourists here during the day. This was actually a botanical garden in the city. Ever since he was completely ignored by a certain terrifying boss and miss made in the factory that day, the young monster, who was afraid that he would encounter something strange when he returned to the mountains, was once again homeless. The little butterfly monster turned into a butterfly, flying above the night sky of the city. After a long time, she smelled the fragrance of flowers and came to this place. Grandpa Tree Monster said that she should either stay away from human beings or integrate into human society. Although the young butterfly demon felt that it was very free in the mountains, she still wanted to see the outside world. But how can I integrate into human society? The little butterfly monster looked at the leaves of the mulberry tree above her head in confusion. At this moment, Luo Dance was holding a small piece of fresh green and hard branch from the tree. She had been thinking about this problem for a whole day while sucking on the broken part of one end. The milky white sap was quickly sucked up. Luo Dance subconsciously licked her lips and swallowed some of the branch. She gently bit it and rolled it with the tip of her tongue. This kind of delicious taste will appear again. At this time, the little butterfly monster felt that her leg was rubbed by something, sending a strange feeling of numbness. She subconsciously lowered her head to look, only to see a green vine wriggling where she was sitting. Before she had time to react, the vine on the ground began to grow crazily and quickly rolled up to her legs and waist. Wow! The little butterfly monster screamed in panic. Her whole body had been tied up by these vines, and then she was hung upside down on the tree. Her hair hung down straight, and her sight was completely inverted. Luo Dance tried to struggle a few times, but found that the more she struggled, the more she was tied up. Such a small monster! Suddenly, a pair of dark blue denim pants appeared in his line of sight. They were straight, slim, and slender. Luo Dance had no time to think about it, as her body had been straightened by those vines. Valiant short hair, a pair of brown large-frame sunglasses, a simple t-shirt with blue and white stripes, and an indifferent but highly pure demonic aura that frightened Luo Dance. "Sister, sister, who are you?" Luo Dance murmured. This kind of demonic aura that was terrifyingly pure made her instinctively fearful. Her body stiffened, and she was afraid that even without the entangling vines, she would not be able to move. "I don't know her age, but at least she looks young, demon." He gently pressed down the brown sunglasses on his face and suddenly walked in front of the little butterfly demon. He reached out and gently pinched her chin, casually moving it left and right. "So it's a little butterfly. Well, golden-banded, swallowtail butterfly. It turns out that it hasn't gone extinct?" The little butterfly monster's eyes shrank at once. The woman's next sentence was, "It should be good to make a specimen." Ah, Luo Dance trembled all of a sudden. At the very least, the young butterfly monster still knew what the specimen was. Luo Dance seemed to see butterflies being put on the chopping board and sealed in the glass frame forever. Her face turned pale with fright. Unexpectedly, this woman with a thin and horrible demonic aura suddenly stretched out her hand and flicked her forehead, chuckling, "I lied to you!" The tight vines loosened at once, and the little butterfly monster sat on the ground softly. "My name is Long Shiro, and you?" "Dance, Luo Dance." "Sir, this is the paint you want." Chin-Chu knew that she had a good memory since she was a child. It was hard to forget people she had seen once. Maybe it was a gift from God. She could even reach the level of photographic memory. But she didn't like to show off, so she didn't tell anyone about her talent. She seemed to be only interested in painting in her life. Guo Yushua. If she remembered correctly, this guest's name was Guo Yushua. "Ah, thank you." Guo Yushua was casually looking at the works in the studio while waiting. At this moment, he stretched out his hand with a smile and received the paint Chin-Chu had packed. Chin-Chu suddenly said with a smile, "If the paint is completely dried, it will be very difficult to clean." Guo Yushua gave a start. Chin-Chu pointed at his clothes and wrist. "When did it stick?" Guo Yushua gave a start, then smiled. "Thanks for reminding me." He still remembered his girlfriend at home, so he didn't intend to say anything more, even if this young female boss of the studio was a woman of high quality. "My girlfriend is starting to become perfect, and I only love her, right? By the way, Sir's girlfriend seems to be very interested in painting. She has used up the paint last time in just a few days." "Yes," Guo Yushua said proudly. She should have some talent, right? "Next time, I'll bring her works to you and let you comment on them." Chin-Chu nodded. Although it was better to get professional guidance for painting than to fumble by oneself, it was indeed a bit annoying to say such words. Like promoting, quickly pay the tuition fee and attend the class, and so on. After Guo Yushua left with the stuff, a man came in after a while and approached Chin-Chu. "Miss, may I ask what he bought just now?" "You are." "Oh, well, I'm his colleague. I happened to pass by and saw it, so I want to ask." Although Chin-Chu felt strange in her heart, she didn't say anything, but simply said, "Just some paint, nothing." The man kept silent for a while, then suddenly muttered, "Paint? I remember he doesn't know how to paint. He seems to have bought it for his girlfriend." Chin-Chu stopped the topic here. "Sir, if you're the friend of that gentleman just now, you should ask him more clearly." The man nodded, thoughtfully leaving the studio. There was a naked corpse lying on the table, which seemed to have been well dissected. Last time it was in the laboratory of a pharmaceutical factory. This time it was in the autopsy room. Boss Luo wasn't a timid person, but when he saw Miss Maid wearing white rubber gloves and holding a scalpel stained with some liquid, he still felt disgusted. It should be an ancient method of refining corpse in Nanyang. Ye put the scalpel on the plate. The corpse lying on the table was actually the one they got from the factory a few days ago. Since then, the monster's corpse showed some disgusting signs of decay. But these pieces of rotten flesh didn't damage the monster's real origin. Instead, after the decay, it revealed its original appearance. It was the psychic who should have been arrested and sent to prison earlier. How did this guy become like this? Luocho frowned. This time Miss Maid, who also put on the medical examiner's uniform without permission, said helplessly, "It's just a small matter, and I didn't want to make you worry, but it seems that there's still a mistake." Luocho gave a start. Yu Yi told him about the psychic, but omitted the matter of Black Soul number 18. Ghost King Tongtian intended to avenge his apprentice, so he brought about his own death. Yu Yi has already killed him, but I didn't expect that he refined the corpse elsewhere. Refining this kind of corpse seems to require a special kind of insect. It needs the heart of a living person to grow. I'm afraid that when the ghost King Tongtian was looking for food, he happened to find those guys lying in the garage. That's why he made the first move. It's enough for Uncle Ma's group to be busy. Luocho shook his head. This would probably become an unsolved case in the end. Luocho looked at the crystal skull taken out from the psychic's corpse. So, it's this thing that Yang Taizi said to exchange for the second part of the cultivation method last time. It seemed that he was destined to meet Bones today. During the day, he was still dealing with another set of bones in Professor Qin Fang's home. But who made this crystal skull? Reaching out to hold this crystal skull, Luocho couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when he touched another set of bones during the day. But he soon thought of something. If there was a skull, would there be other parts? A whole set of crystal bones? At this moment, pulling his thoughts away from this crystal skull, Luocho glanced at Yu Yi, who was standing quietly beside him. Looking at this silent and slightly lowered head, as if she had done something wrong and was waiting for her master to punish her, Luocho had to say softly, "Pack up and go back?" "Tonight. Well, vegetarian food is okay." "Master," Luocho smiled, "you solved some troubles for me in a place I didn't know. If you still feel that you didn't do a good job and want to blame me, you probably won't be able to live well in the future, right?" 8:30 p.m. Luocho had to stop eating while eating the vegetarian dishes that Miss Maid carefully cooked. Miss Maid, who seemed to be happier today, hurriedly took a napkin and wiped the traces around Boss Luo's mouth considerately, although it felt really good. But if he continued indulging in this way, would he completely degenerate into a handicapped person? Boss Luo once again welcomed Guiyushua as a guest. Well, the third time,